Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Meiman, get a ghost writer at the beginning. Chapter 41. Hello, I'm David and I'm the head of security here. David, a strong white man, stretched out a thick arm covered with tattoos. Good guy, it was almost as thick as Roger's arms. Hello, I am Roger, you can call me Luo, Luo is my last name. Note 1. Although I have never believed in exorcists and the like, Matthew actually invited you. If you need my cooperation, please tell me directly. Okay, can I take a look at this mister? Roger pointed at the young man lying on the sun lounger in a daze. Of course, but he has not been in good spirits recently, please don't do anything to irritate him. Understand, a person who has killed someone and is being prosecuted by the court is certainly not in a good state of mind. Roger stepped forward to observe carefully and sniffed it with Ghost Rider's nose. It had a sin value, but it didn't mean anything. The bodyguards around him all have a crime value, because they may have killed people abroad during their years as soldiers. But this second generation named Lucas seems a little strange, as if his soul is missing something. To explain it in Dongmian's words, it means that part of the 3 souls and 7 souls is missing. After being an exorcist for so long, this is the first time Roger has seen this situation. The reason is very simple. The devil will not bite a person's soul and put it back. He must want the whole soul, not half. Moreover, according to Roger's research, the soul is just like the internal organs of the human body. If a piece of the internal organs is missing, it will be dead. If the internal organs are missing a kidney, you can still survive. If the soul is missing a piece, it may be cold. Being able to survive is simply as good as protection. Animals are just as rare. If a devil bites off a piece of his soul and still survives, it's like having a brain-cutting operation, which is extremely difficult. After watching this second generation, Roger walked up to the bodyguard supervisor and asked, "Can I ask how the previous exorcists died?" David, the bodyguard supervisor, was silent for a long time and said, "We still have the scene. I can ask someone to take you to the scene to see. Not only the exorcist, but also several of our brothers are dead. Can you tell me the specific situation? It's indescribable. The monitor failed, and something happened to the people on guard the next day, so. Now when I hear that I have to keep vigil for Mr. Lucas at night, the brothers are a little scared, although this is what the bodyguards eat." David, the supervisor, said helplessly, "Several brothers have already submitted their resignations. They all came from the battlefields in Central Asia. They would not frown even if they were raining bullets, but these invisible enemies." Then David explained to Roger why this second-generation man named Lucas suffered from this, because his uncle was a famous oil tycoon in this country, but not Rockefeller. Rockefeller is a family that has been passed down for hundreds of years, and although it is huge, its assets have long been dispersed and cannot be dispersed. Nowadays, most of the rich are ranked based on their personal assets. Although their family assets are large, their personal assets are not enviable. Since his uncle, a billionaire, had no direct descendants, the nephew who was closest to him and had the best relationship was chosen as his successor after his death. Then the problem came. Many people were jealous of the oil tycoon's property, so they wanted to kill Lucas. Last month, for some unknown reason, this Lucas suddenly changed his temperament and killed a girl. Coincidentally, he was also photographed and the evidence was exposed. Hence, the news that Roger saw at the beginning came about, the public opinion caused by a rich second generation. For this reason, the billionaire took Lucas over directly and sent bodyguards to guard him 24 hours a day. Then a bodyguard took Roger to the room where the second generation lived. It was really inconvenient for the evil capitalist to have to walk a long and terrible distance by car. After looking at the things in his room, his eyes finally stopped on a scale. Picking up the scale, Roger asked the bodyguard, "Can you tell me about this scale?" The bodyguard said, "This is an antique that Mr. Lucas bought when he traveled to Egypt. It is said to be over 3,000 years old according to experts." Roger picked up the palm-sized scale, bronze and stained with rust. In the eyes of judgment, it is a scale without any power and without the breath of the devil. But in the systematic appraisal, it is a shining thing. Good guy, if it weren't for the identification of the game system, I wouldn't have discovered it at all. This thing is here for the time being. I suspect it as the culprit of this incident. Well, wait a moment, I'll notify Mr. Matthew. The bodyguard picked up a walkie-talkie, spoke a few words to Matthew, the butler, and nodded. Mr. Matthew said it's okay. You can pick out anything in the manner that you think is problematic. Understood. Soon, it was time for the sun to set, and the bodyguard sent the mentally disturbed second generation back to the house. Then the guard tasks began to be arranged, and the bodyguards who were assigned to be on duty at night showed fearful expressions. Eventually the group chose a very large room, with Roger and another bodyguard guarding it inside, while several others guarded the outside. Just like that, slowly, it became dark. When it was almost 12 o'clock in the evening, Roger yawned out of boredom and said, "Hey, why haven't the situations you mentioned happened yet?" The bodyguard looked at the time with sweat on his face and made no reply. At this moment, calls began to come from outside the door, followed by continuous gunshots. There was a loud banging noise coming from behind, but on the intercom, David, the head of the bodyguard, told Roger to guard the second floor and leave the others alone. Finally, the door to the room fell apart with a loud bang. Then an invisible thing broke in directly. The bodyguard standing inside drew his gun and looked around, but there was no one there. "Be careful." Before Roger could finish his words, the bodyguard was knocked out of the window by a huge force, and he didn't know whether he was dead or not. At this time, Roger's pupils had turned into flames, and the eye of judgment opened. A creature from the underworld, invisible to the human eye, was breaking in, as if looking for something, rummaging through the entire room. The other party seemed to have discovered that Roger could see it, opened its mouth wide open, roared directly at Roger, and rushed forward. Roger was greedy when he looked at this big dog that was invisible to the naked eye. "Where can I buy this kind of dog? If this is used to look after homes, it's perfectly safe." Seeing that the dog was about to throw Roger to the ground, Roger calmly took out the Arnold shotgun and fired one round at it. This invisible giant dog had a look of disdain on its face. Human weapons would only pass through its body. The next second, when the bullet flew into the body of the unknown big dog, a fire suddenly broke out, and the flames quickly ignited the big dog's body. A huge burning pain caused it to roll all over the room, and all the furniture was smashed to pieces. Finally, he crashed through a wall and fell directly to the garden outside the house. Then he slowly stopped wailing and was burned to death by the flames. Roger jumped out of the window and came to this dead big dog. It was not a ghost or anything like that, but it switched between entity and non-entity, but the gun couldn't hit it. What's more important is that Roger doesn't know them yet, but considering the earth he lives in, he may not be able to recognize all the creatures on the earth. It's not surprising that he doesn't recognize a few creatures in hell. "Mr. Luo, what is that?" David, the bodyguard supervisor, came over and looked at the empty thing in the fountain with a confused look. "There are only traces of damage showing that some creature should have fallen around here." Roger picked up a small speck of ashes. He was about to start looking for someone. When such a creature appeared in the world, there must be a controller behind it. He picked up the ashes as a medium and began to whisper. "Holy Mother Earth, Mother of the upper realm, please guide me. Reveal the demon hiding here." David, the bodyguard supervisor, asked curiously, "Mr. Luo, what are you reading?" "This is Enochian, the language of angels, a searching spell." After saying that, Roger took out a motorcycle from behind and got on it, turned the accelerator according to the guidance of the spell, and rushed out. "Quick, let's follow David," the bodyguard leader shouted and quickly asked his men to drive. "The evil manor is too big." Roger's modified motorcycle roared, and the benefits of two wheels were revealed. "It can go anywhere." Just as he was about to hit the high wall of the manor, Roger pulled up the front of the car and started flying. The evil spirit motorcycle spewed out a stream of flames from its exhaust pipe in midair and accelerated, then leapt across the high wall. Finally, he landed firmly on the ground outside the high wall and rushed out again. Downstream of the Hudson River, a small speedboat was parked on the dark river. There were two people sitting on the boat. One of them suddenly opened his eyes. "Someone is chasing you, let's go quickly." "Is someone coming? I didn't see any ship." The other person in charge of driving the boat looked confused and looked around, but he didn't see any boats chasing him. The one responsible for controlling the creatures in the underworld closed his eyes and whispered softly. After a while, Several large dogs from the underworld appeared by the river like before. How to block it? Roger took out his gun and pointed it at several underworld creatures. He shot them one at a time and eliminated them all. There was a roar of a motorcycle, and an evil motorcycle with flaming wheels drove directly towards the speedboat from the land. Gods from all walks of life came up. What did they see? A motorcycle that could drive on water, and the tires were still on fire. Wouldn't the fire go out when it encounters water? When Roger drove directly into the middle of the river, he jumped onto the speedboat. The two people on the speedboat were not polite and took out their guns and fired several shots. Blah blah. After a few shots, Roger was unscathed. He took out his gun and shot one of them in the thigh. Then he held a shotgun to the other's head. Tell me, who are you, what is your goal here, and why do you drive creatures from the underworld? The two people remained silent. Look at me. The man driving the boat subconsciously looked into Roger's eyes, and his soul was instantly ignited. Immediately, all the evil things this man had done began to appear in his mind, and Roger also drew some things from his memory. When the eye of judgment ignites the opponent's soul and makes it repent and reminisce, Roger, as the Ghost Rider, can also see part of the soul's memory. But it's not sorcery. A person's memory is so huge from childhood to adulthood, and it's even so huge that the person himself may not be able to remember it. The Ghost Rider can only pick the important part when the other party is repenting and reminiscing. Otherwise, every time he ignites a person and reads through decades of memories, Roger will sooner or later be driven insane by all kinds of miscellaneous memories. In his memory, he came here for the scale Roger took from the second generation. This scale was a cultural relic unearthed in ancient Egypt half a year ago. They suspected it had magical power, but could not find a way to use it. By chance, they hired tomb robbers to steal it from the museum, but the most ridiculous thing happened. The rich second-generation Lucas happened to travel to Egypt. Seeing that he was interested in ancient Egyptian cultural relics, the tomb robbers actually sold them to the second-generation Lucas, who added money. After the transaction, the tomb robbers fled. They originally planned to snatch the things back, but found that by accident, the second-generation Lucas actually controlled the use of the scale. After that, they kept summoning creatures from the underworld to scare the second generation. The second generation was so frightened that he kept using the power of the scales, and slowly the second generation became mentally disturbed. Finally, last month, he brutally murdered his girlfriend, and was subsequently detected by the FBI and directly prosecuted. After intimidating the second generation several times, they also determined how to use the scale, and later decided to kill him and then take back the scale. What makes them helpless is that the scale is different from any magic props, just like a stone on the roadside, which cannot be detected using magic. As for the creatures from the underworld they summoned, to put it bluntly, they were okay at killing people, but looking for things was just like Erha, which was terrible to look at. Who is your leader? Tell me. Roger grabbed the other one and threatened directly. Because he didn't see their leader in the other party's memory, there seemed to be a mysterious force protecting their memory. Yes. Yes. The man driving the boat was obviously frightened by Roger's appearance and was about to say it. It's Ya. Before he could finish his words, he suddenly rolled his eyes with a painful expression on his face. Then he lay on the ground struggling and died after a while. Dead. Roger stepped forward and tested the other person's pulse and heartbeat. They had stopped. It was a curse that killed someone. Having gotten into trouble, an evil sect with black magic and curses, Roger couldn't help but feel a little dizzy. We are not afraid of thieves stealing, but we are afraid of being missed by thieves. But fortunately, it is not without gain. The scale in my hand is a good thing from this harvest. Judging from the number of times the other party observes the use of the second generation Lucas, the method of using this scale is exchange. In exchange for something, it is worthy of being a black magic item. As expected, none of it is in vain. I don't know what the second generation used in exchange for it, but in the end it caused him to go crazy and even lose his soul. But the power of the scale is also very powerful. You get what you pay for. You get what you pay for in return. Roger blinked, wondering if the character skin in the game system could be whitewashed. Give it back to the second generation. That's impossible. This thing was damaged in the battle just now and fell into the river. You can go find it yourself. After returning to the manor, Roger told the bodyguard supervisor about this matter. The other party patted his chest and said that he would take people to the river to have a look. As for the dead people, they would handle it. As long as it is not exposed by the media, this kind of thing is not difficult for them to handle. Mr. Luo, Matthew asks you to come over and discuss something with you. Unconsciously, David, the bodyguard supervisor, used your title. This world is such a reality, and those who are capable can be respected. When Roger came to the living room and saw the butler Matthew, he had a heavy expression on his face. I have taken care of the intruder. Judging from your expression, it seems like something happened. Master Lucas dead. Dead? How did you die? It turns out that he is not dead, but has completely turned into a vegetative state. His brain is dead, but his body is still alive. Roger was speechless for a moment. This person didn't know what was being traded, so he was constantly being asked for a price by the balance. He should not be brain dead, but soul dead, which is no different from death. I would like to ask Mr. Luo if there is anything I can do. You need to find a doctor or a priest to see if the exorcism works. There's nothing I can do about it. Matthew nodded. He only asked Roger with a glimmer of hope. In fact, he also knew that there was nothing the brain-dead doctor could do. As for the priest, I don't have any hope that they can cure a brain-dead person, but I'll still call and get one. Mr. Luo, although the invisible intruders have been dealt with, I still hope that you can stay, fulfill the contract, and protect the young master for this week to avoid any remaining killers. Roger patted his chest and said, keep it with me. Don't worry, I am the one who keeps my promises. After not sleeping all night, the bodyguards had to change shifts, but Roger didn't. Of course he had to rest in the morning. The servant took him to a restaurant, which was several times larger than his home, and then served several plates of breakfast food. While eating breakfast, Roger turned on the TV and watched it. He would go back to rest later. On the TV, a news that caused a sensation across the country was broadcast, and countless TV stations rebroadcast it. 2 days ago, New York State's Auburn Prison, a private prison directly contracted by the local government in order to reduce the burden, was revealed. A person who shouldn't be in this prison was welcomed. Because in this country, with only 80.00% of the number, criminals account for the crime incidents. If they remain number one forever, no one can try to pull them down from number one. Therefore, in this prison, the majority of people are of course Hay people, and there are relatively few people of other nationalities. And the private prisons that have been contracted out have become 5-star hotel treatments for paying money. No money, then enjoy all kinds of inhuman treatment. Now this handsome mixed-race guy didn't know how he got in, so he was escorted by the prison guards to the uninhabited cell on the bottom floor. Wow, look what's here today, a handsome white-skinned mixed-race guy. One of the old men licked his lips and looked at the handsome young man in front of him with salivation. Hey, I'll go first. I agreed that it will be my turn next. An old man with a few missing teeth smiled directly at the young man and winked. I can let you come first, and we can take turns later. Ha 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 ha. Several old men around laughed. No matter how the other party changed, they would not be able to escape tonight. No sheep could escape if it reaches its mouth. Hey, man, tell me why you came here, tell us your misfortune, and make us happy. A man with thick arms seemed to be the leader of the cell. I'm here to have a meal. The expressionless young man slowly raised a strange smile at the corner of his mouth. What did you just say? The big black man looked at the other person's smile, and for some reason, he felt a little creepy. I mean, I'm here to have dinner. When a large group of adults were looking confused and didn't know what each other was saying, the young man had already begun to transform. Look at me, you fools. Various parts of the young man's body began to crack, black smoke and flames spewed out from the cracks, and he instantly turned into a flaming skeleton. Ah, devil. A group of panicked old men subconsciously looked into the skeleton's eyes, and soon their souls were ignited and turned into mummies. Ha ha, this skeleton is the clone Roger who came out of the mirror. Because Roger himself returned to reality, his bond with the world continued to weaken. Then he gradually disappeared. For this reason, he could only transform into the Ghost Rider and constantly harvest souls with strong sinfulness to delay his disappearance. However, it is so easy to find people with high sin value. For Ghost Rider, Harvesting people with too low sin value is completely useless. However, in human society, there is a place called a prison, especially a heavy-duty prison. Harvesting in such a place is much easier than sweeping the streets. With Roger's memory, the clone easily sneaked in using some black magic and went directly to this private prison to cut leaks. There is only one way to avoid disappearing into the real world, and that is to kill the real version of Roger. Just like time travel cannot accommodate two selves at the same time, once two identical people are in the same time and space, one of them will slowly disappear. But before killing Roger, he must be stronger than him, because the two have equal strength and the same memory. Having the same memory does not mean that he can understand the other person's thoughts. In the memory of the mirror clone Roger, he really doesn't understand why Roger doesn't do the thing where the Ghost Rider can become stronger by harvesting his soul. Instead, he trained himself day after day and turned to learn various black magic. Just wait, there are thousands of people in this prison. When I finish harvesting, I will be at least 100 times stronger than you. If I kill you, I can live in this world. Ha 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 ha. The skeleton man began to cover his face and laugh lowly, then turned to laugh wildly again. Ha 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 ha. You are all my food, come on. He grabbed an iron pipe and enchanted it with evil spirit fire, turning it directly into a long sword. Then with a wave of his hand, the inside of the iron door made of alloy was melted. Mirror Roger walked out of the cell with the identity of Ghost Rider and walked to another room. Then he recited a black magic spell, which directly paralyzed the prison circuit. He didn't want the prison guards to escape, because their guilt levels were not low. When the circuit is short-circuited by black magic, the prison starts to be on guard, but usually it is to prevent others from escaping from the prison, but it never occurred to anyone that someone would kill criminals inside. While the prison guards were guarding the entrances of the prison passages with various firearms, tear gas, and riot helmets, death-like screams were constantly heard from the prisoners inside. The prison guards looked at each other in confusion, wondering what was going on inside. According to our report, the largest fire broke out in Auburn Prison in New York State. More than 3,000 inmates inside all died in the fire. The official announcement is that the fire started from a short circuit in the wires, but as we all know, the prison does not have the infrastructure to cause a large-scale fire. According to the escaped prison guard, there was a flaming demon setting fire inside. When Roger saw this, his face slowly became serious. He had a bad feeling about the news on TV. There was a large-scale fire, and the flame demon couldn't be the copy that escaped from the mirror image. A serious criminal worth 2,000 to 3,000, this crime is worth. Wody is a good boy. This is incredible. If it was really the clone who did it, the other party's incompetence would have increased to the extreme. Not knowing whether he would be strangled to death, Roger sneered. The Ghost Rider could indeed become infinitely stronger by harvesting souls. But the memory of the clone did not show the scene of being tortured to the point of madness. Countless evil souls kept whispering in Roger's ears, the whispers of thousands of souls, ha. I'm afraid that in the end he will lose himself and completely become a Ghost Rider without human thoughts. Yes, the Ghost Rider is powerful, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have any attachments. It's just like the Bei Ming Shen Gong in martial arts. It seems that harvesting the souls of a few people has no side effects, but once it is expanded to thousands in pursuit of power, it is impossible to have no side effects at all. However, the side effects will not come out so quickly. It will take some time. If it is really a clone, you should prepare early. I didn't sleep anymore, so I said hello to Matthew and told myself that I would be back in the evening, then got on the motorcycle and went out. Roger needs to quickly get some auxiliary gadgets, such as some magic props. Driving to an empty lot in the suburbs, Roger came here to find someone. A man who advanced from a magic apprentice to a black magician. His name is Felix Faust. This person is both good and evil. In the words of the novel, he is an egoist. But there is no need to mention talent. How many black magicians are there in the world who can become self-taught without a teacher? 5 elements of the world. I sincerely call you. Origin from 6 directions. Reveal the truth. Reveal true body. As Roger finished reciting the last sentence, revealing his true form, a very large house, or rather a warehouse, appeared on the deserted grass. This guy's hometown has cast an invisibility spell. You know what the invisibility spell is, but if you want to maintain it 24 hours a day, it's a big deal. It consumes a huge amount of mana. Felix Faust, are you here? I'm coming in. Remember to put your trap away, otherwise don't blame me if you break it. With the eye of judgment, any magic trap is as transparent to Roger. In the miscellaneous warehouse, there are all kinds of strange things, including human specimens, baby bones, sea monster parts, and some magic materials soaked in unknown glass jars. Luo, you fool, why did you come to me again? A man with a sinister expression slowly walked out of the warehouse. Don't say that. There is no grudge between us. I don't have the habit of drinking and defrauding others of all their property. On the contrary, I often invite others to drink. Roger said. Don't mention that to me, or I'll kick you out. Felix had a sinister look on his face. Hearing Roger's words, he was furious. Tell me, why do you come to my place? Ahem, I want you to help me identify something. After speaking, Roger took out the scale he got from the second generation and put it on the table. Oh, is this? Felix picked up the scale with a curious look on his face and began to identify it. After looking at it for a while, he put the scale down and hurried into his study. Wait, I have to find some information. After digging through boxes and cupboards, Felix ran out with 2 books. I found it, The Balance of Pharaoh II of Ancient Egypt. Felix pulled out the detailed introduction in one of the books. This thing was made by the second pharaoh of Egypt. In order to make Egypt strong and prosperous, he prayed to the Egyptian gods for endless knowledge. The Egyptian gods naturally couldn't give it to him, so he used the lives of a large number of slaves as sacrifices to make this scale. Then he could communicate with unknown mysterious beings and trade directly with them. The original intention of the balance is the exchange of equivalent knowledge. Felix smiled sarcastically, his whole face looking even more sinister. The unknown existence is not a deception. It's just that the other party asked for one of his happiest and most precious memories in exchange. The more you exchange, the greater the reward. The pharaoh at that time proposed to exchange a large number of slave lives. Unfortunately, this mysterious existence only recognized the memory of the person he wanted to trade. So this pharaoh first exchanged the happy memories of his childhood for his lifespan, and then exchanged the memories of his parents' company when he was growing up. At last, Roger touched his chin and took over. In the end, all the happy memories were replaced, and there was only one unfortunate memory left in his life, and then he went crazy. Felix smiled sinisterly and said, Memory is originally a part of the soul. When a part of the memory is replaced, the soul will be missing a part more or less, and the soul is the most incapable of recovery, so. This thing looks like a treasure, but it's actually useless. The higher the request, the more memories the other party will ask for. If it exceeds a certain price, it will directly become a vegetative state or the soul will be broken, you know. It seems to be of great use to me. Maybe you can try white bleaching yourself. Felix, tell me how to use this scale, Roger said. Felix had no expression on his face, he just stretched out his index finger and thumb and rubbed it. How much? Roger asked angrily. Untrained cultivators are so miserable. No wonder the immortal cultivators in the novel are trying their best to squeeze into the big sects because they have a monopoly on knowledge. The other party stretched out a finger. Roger asked tentatively, 10,000. Felix closed the book directly, stood up and walked inside expressionlessly. 100,000. Seeing that the other party continued to stand up without hesitation, Roger shouted out the last number in pain. Okay, I get it, 100 million. After hearing this, Felix walked back with a gentle expression, and then quietly waited for Roger to pay. By the way, Japanese yen or Vietnamese dong? Felix slammed the book on the table, bang. Okay, I know it's a beautiful knife, 100 million, you vampires. Roger felt pain and took out the beautiful knives that had not been warmed from the space. He counted the bundles and put them directly on the table when he had enough to make 100 bundles. Felix's eyes lit up and he began to count the banknotes. He didn't show a satisfied smile until he confirmed that the number was correct. There is no way. Dark wizards are also big spenders of money. All kinds of materials cost money. It is impossible to rob banks all the time. If you do that, you will only have your wanted avatars all over the dark world. It is not only ordinary people who follow the unspoken rules, but also all kinds of exorcists and wizards. Anyone who dares to break the rules of the game will be rewarded with a heavy reward, and will attract endless wizard hunters. By the way, do you recognize these runes? Roger once again took out some of the remaining runes on the magic mirror and handed it to him. This is the magic rune of Karmatage. Felix snatched the remaining photos of Roger and flipped through them one by one like an old drifter. Oh, you know them too. Is it possible that you went to study with a teacher, but in the end you couldn't find them even though you were apes without dung? Roger asked gloatingly. Another person without ape excrement was also a fallen person from the end of the world. However, the other person's answer in the next second made him break his defense. No, I saw it, and I even went in. Roger. But the other party said that although I was extremely talented, I unfortunately had a bad intention. After 2 months of investigation, they kicked me out. Having said this, Felix Faust couldn't help but grit his teeth. The most miserable thing in life is not being able to get into a prestigious university, but being kicked out after getting admitted. It's just, okay, having said all that, do you know how to appraise it? I want to use these spell runes. If you can, please give me a price. Felix said greedily. This is a photo taken from a magic prop. If you are willing to keep it with me for 3 days, I will authenticate it for you for free. How about it? Don't even think about it, Roger pouted. The thing he values should be kept in your house for 3 days. If you find that it is extremely valuable and just take the money and run away, who will I find? You know, in real society, a lot of policemen who run away with money can't find anyone, let alone a black magician. If I don't have a time stone, where can I find you? Okay, Felix said with a look of regret. You don't want to, so just pay 10,000 for each rune, not Japanese yen, not Vietnamese dong, but US dollars. What, so expensive? I went to Chinatown to find someone to appraise it, and it only cost and you actually charged. Roger snorted coldly, collected all the photos, put them in the folder and left. 9,000, no less. I have to test every magic rune one by one before I can determine their purpose. This process consumes a lot of mana and materials. Roger ignored it, directly raised his feet and walked towards the door. 8,000, Felix couldn't help but feel anxious. Okay, 7,000, it really can't be less. Okay, deal. Felix. Although he suffered a bit, Felix still took over the business, because after the appraisal, these runes will also become one of his magical knowledge reserves. After completing the transaction, Roger walked out of the invisible warehouse, at the cost of cleaning up half of the knife that had just been heated. By the way, I went out and asked the other party for a pack of special salt used to draw magic circles, because it can be blended into my own evil spirit fire, so that the evil spirit motorcycle can drive on the road and use its tires to draw magic without even knowing it. This profession really costs money like water, alas. I really envy a certain surgeon. He has arranged everything and directly enters the sect. He can read all kinds of knowledge at will, learn spells at will, and receive artifacts directly. In the end, even the position of head is his. The gap between people is so big. Other protagonists who travel through the system are given everything and get what they want. Traveling by yourself requires hard work. I called the naughty kid again and threw him the test paper he asked for, completing another kid's task. It was almost afternoon when we finished all this. Although young people sometimes play games and live for 3 days without any problem, for the sake of future happiness in life, Roger still went home and had a good sleep. When he woke up, it was already 10 o'clock in the evening. Roger. Driving a motorcycle, I hurried to the manor and saw Matthew. The law in the United States is that working time cannot exceed 8 hours. Roger said, feeling that he felt a little guilty, so he said sternly. I'll just start working today. I'll have 9 hours until tomorrow morning. The extra work won't be counted as overtime pay. Matthew still had that elegant smile. There are no invisible intruders tonight. I believe you eliminated them last night. I believe everyone can spend the night in peace. That's good. If you need anything, call me and I'll stand guard outside. After speaking, Roger and the bodyguard leader David took a walkie-talkie and went directly to the second floor to stand guard outside. But Roger actually felt that there was no need to guard it. After all, the second generation was dead, and his soul was probably lost because of a missing piece. He took out the scale, picked up his notebook and opened it to read. What was written on it was the cracking spell that he identified from Felix Faust. The spells of ancient Egypt, but the devil knows how to speak the language of ancient Egypt, so it is not only a headache to recognize these runes, but it is even more of a headache to pronounce the spells in ancient Egyptian. Felix thoughtfully showed Roger how to pronounce the phonetic sounds. Roger recited a ghost spell that he didn't understand, and then slowly input his mental power into this palm-sized scale. After a while, I felt the message coming from the scale, just one sentence. If you want knowledge, exchange it with equal value. To prevent accidents, Roger equipped a character skin before using the scales. Hey, hello, can we talk? Speak. I heard that you were a god. How about we chat? I don't know what else you collect besides memories. Hollywood blockbusters are much better than my memories. The special effects are so exciting. You want happy memories of mankind, how about I find you some anime, from island countries, everything from rustling to passionate adventures. Or, can I give you some novels? They are very good. There are Eastern-style Travels of Sacrifice and Western-style Harry Potter. Hey, you should say something. If you don't say anything, I'll die. Roger was a little disappointed. This thing required extracting his own memory and exchanging it, but he had no idea what knowledge to exchange for it at the moment. Moreover, memory is a part of the soul, and you cannot give it away casually. It is different from the devil's deal, because you can beat the creditor to death, so you can default on the debt. But this scale is different. Obviously, you have to put the trading stuff on it first, and then start buying and selling, and the other party can't come over. How can I get the money I paid back if I can't even find the person who bought and sold it? Obviously, game skins can only create characters, not a soul. Roger has thought of many ways to do this. Is it possible to hypnotize himself first? Create a false happy memory for yourself and see if you can fool the other person. That's not right. According to Felix, memory is not only stored in the brain, but also a part of the soul. Unless you are an expert in the soul and can make some fake things to deceive the mysterious existence on the other side of the scale. What should I do? I don't want to pay, I just want to live in vain. What kind of movie are you talking about? Roger. I thought that the other person was a robot, or that he couldn't speak, or that the master was too lazy to talk to me, but he didn't expect that he actually spoke. That, a movie is just a story shot with a camera. How can I put it this way? It's pretty good. How about we do some PYD first? I'll buy one and get one free. How about giving you an extra movie? What kind of knowledge do you want to exchange for? Time and space magic, Taja's time and space magic. Hey, boss, the signal here is not good, can you hear me? Time and space magic. Hello, what's going on? Did you hang up the phone? Roger looked at the scale in confusion. Could it be that there was a communication failure due to lack of maintenance for too long? It can't be that the big guy opposite doesn't know time and space magic, right? Roger scratched his head and was planning to connect the microphone again and try to talk to the big boss on the other side again. Boom. At this time, there was a loud noise, a big explosion occurred at the door of the manor, and then a Ford F-150 rushed in directly. David, the bodyguard leader, immediately received the report from his subordinates, and some of the bodyguards took out their pistols and started doing it. But the next second, the Ford F-150 burst into flames. A skeleton man stood up on the roof of the car. He picked up the 6-barrel Gatling and swept it across. Dodge, Matthew yelled. Gatling, which spins up to 1 revolution per minute, tore through everything in an instant, including trees, cars, and reinforced concrete walls. A bodyguard was shot and torn to pieces. David rushed over, picked up an RPG and fired it directly at Ford. Boom! After a loud noise and explosion, accompanied by thick smoke, the Ford car appeared at the scene intact. The skeleton raised his head and smiled ferociously at David. Yes, David felt that it was a ferocious smile. Then he raised his Gatling 6-wheel tube again and swept a tongue of fire towards David. David's skills were very good. Before the opponent's bullet hit him, he had already rolled into the house and then crawled forward crazily. When the bodyguards on the scene were almost killed, the skeleton jumped down and grabbed a survivor he deliberately left alive. Tell me, where is that person? The only remaining bodyguard asked tremblingly. Who are you asking? The skeleton man was immediately furious. Roger, the man who took over the mission and came to you to exorcise demons, where is he? The bodyguard stretched out his hand tremblingly and pointed to the house in the distance. He is over there with Master Lucas. The skeleton followed his hand and looked. The evil rich man lives in many and big houses. It can be seen that they are at least several miles away, and there are several of them in a series. Forget it, I'll look for it myself. Look at me, baby. The skeleton man turned to look at the bodyguard and instantly ignited the fire of his soul, burning him directly into a mummy. Then he threw it aside and looked at the remaining memory images. After locking Roger's position, the Ford automatically came to his side. The skeleton jumped on the roof of the car, and the unmanned autonomous driving drove in the direction of Roger. It turns out we came here to find him, this broomstick, David, who escaped with his life, cursed and vomited a small mouthful of blood. He was indeed a scoundrel who came to protect the rich second-generation Lucas, but he died on the first day, and then someone came to kill him the next day, directly entering the manor. Who was protecting whom? He thought he was here to kill the rich man, but it turned out that he was here to kill the exorcist. It was really an unreasonable disaster. David, the bodyguard leader, swore that he would resign after this time and would never work for a rich man again. It was so scary. Either the creature he saw, or the skeleton that couldn't be killed by a rocket launcher. When Roger saw the battle in the distance, he already knew who was coming. It was the copy of the mirror image, and this guy wanted to kill him. Two identical people cannot appear in a timeline, and the same seems to be true for the clones produced by the magic mirror. Therefore, the only way to avoid disappearing is to kill oneself and the other. While the other party was killing people in that direction, Roger had quietly sneaked into the house where he was, started to evacuate the crowd, then took out some materials and started to draw some magic circles in the house. When the Ford drove up to Roger's house, Roger was ready for the hunt. Haha, I found you, the original Roger, the clone Roger said ecstatically. With the unique sixth senses of the Ghost Rider, when approaching a certain distance, he can detect some non-human auras, especially Roger, who has the same origin. Haha, you are in there, and you have set up a trap for me to get in. I know you too well, you insidious villain. Mirror Roger sneered. Then, he jumped behind the Ford F-150 and took out a rocket launcher, an M136 rocket launcher. It was aimed at the house, and the rocket flew into the house instantly, and then there was a big explosion. Boom! The violent TNT gunpowder directly destroyed all the magic traps set by Roger, leaving no one behind. At the same time, it also blew up all of his clothes, leaving him completely naked. Wo Zhuang, if I hadn't transformed so quickly, I wouldn't have been blown to death by you. You're such a sinister villain, you're so ungrateful. Roger cursed and transformed into the Ghost Rider. Just when I was about to go out to challenge him, another rocket flew towards me. Roger. Outside the house, Roger, the mirror image, was picking up the M136 rocket launcher on the back of the Ford car, and kept firing into the house, until the house was blown to the point of collapse, and Roger was not seen coming out. Fake, come out quickly, I know you're not dead yet, you fool, you're a coward. The clone Roger cursed, but still didn't dare to go in. Because the other party was too insidious, especially the various strange traps in his memory, which made him a little afraid. Boom! At this moment, the area he was in collapsed directly, and the clone, together with his Ford car, fell into a sudden pit. A Ghost Rider emerged directly from the collapsed pit, and then a flaming iron chain instantly swam like a snake, tying the clone tightly before the clone could react. Then the two people started in the pothole. The clone was dizzy after being transformed by Roger and couldn't find its direction. The clone tried to fight back several times, but the chains on his body seemed to come alive and tied him tightly without letting up for a moment. All of a sudden, the clone felt as if he was facing two people fighting. One was the evil spirit chain that automatically tied people up, and the other was Roger who kept beating him. This is the result of Roger's years of practice. After traveling through time and obtaining the Ghost Rider, he summarized all his film and television works and novels from his previous life. The result is that you can practice and improve step by step. Although it is slow, it is ultimately the power you control. And the power obtained through various means is ultimately a mirage, which is useless but useless. The cloned body can control Ford's driverless driving, but it cannot make a chain learn to fight like himself. In the words of netizens, you are already a mature chain. Don't rely on your master. It's time to learn to fight on your own. Mature cars, as well as ghost motorcycles, can learn to drive by themselves. It is very logical for them to learn to fight as Ghost Rider's weapons. Just like a writer's assistant who must learn to code on his own. Protector of the earth, guardian of soil foundation. Welcome to this sacred place. With the earth, with your body, and the wisdom of the ancients. Salute to you. Please obey my call and appear here. Back to 3 minutes ago, Roger finished setting up the trap and began to summon some brothers. This was a spell to summon goblins. Mine goblins, formed from the souls of dead miners, are kind-hearted creatures that warn of upcoming dangers by tapping on the walls of the shaft. And Roger summoned them, of course, to help them show off their special skills and dig holes. Just dig out a way to escape from the house. If you can't defeat it, just run away, or you can just trap the clone to death. When the opponent immediately launched a large number of rockets to kill him, Roger sneaked into the tunnel dug by the goblin, and then slowly dug to the opponent's feet. The Eye of Judgment can see through the evil ways, but it cannot see through the earth. It does not have the X-ray eyes like Superman. So amidst the explosion, he easily dug into the replica's feet, letting him know that the copycat was incomparable to the original. Look at me, copycat. Roger grabbed the other person's head, then looked into the other person's eyes, and directly opened the Eye of Judgment. Eye of Judgment vs Eye of Judgment. The clone was still alive and well, and had regained some composure, and was looking at Roger. Quote. Sure enough, it was ineffective against the Ghost Rider at the same time. Two pairs of eyes with the same function could not destroy the other party. It seemed that he had to wait until the other party's transformation was released and turned into a human to kill it. Ha 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 ha, I also have the Eye of Judgment. Your skills are ineffective against me. I knew you were a sinister villain from a long time ago, but I didn't expect that you would secretly dig a tunnel. Roger was happy. He dared this guy to copy his memory and Ghost Rider, but he couldn't copy his combat experience. The huge memory makes people sometimes unable to recall what they have learned in their lives, which seems normal. Just like some machines, no matter how much information you read, they are still not as skilled as a worker who actually operates them in the factory. Workers have been working hard for many years, and they have reached the point where they can live broadcast on their mobile phones and chat with colleagues without delaying their work. It is obvious that the clone only has memories of the black magic and various miscellaneous things that it has learned in its memory, but it is not as fast as itself in getting started. Roger himself, even if he is strong enough to defeat the opponent, will still try to use the least troublesome method, but the opponent is obviously inexperienced. He just drives a Ford with a load of weapons and wants to kill him. He is too underestimated. Bah! Roger took out his shotgun and fired a few enchanted bullets at the clone's head, only to find that the clone had the same immortality as himself. The shattered head quickly recovered, and then got angry again. After his head was smashed several times by Roger, the opponent still recovered as before. Now he had a toothache. With the same immortality, there was only another way to do it. You gave me a hint, but I forgot to tell you that there are dozens of kilograms of TNT in my car, and, hey. Roger suddenly felt bad and jumped out of the pit. Then in midair, he took out a bulletproof shield and blocked it in front of him. As soon as all this was done, there was a big explosion in the pit, boom. A huge mushroom cloud appeared directly in the manor. The surrounding buildings were directly shattered by the huge impact, and Roger was blown far away by the impact in midair. After falling to the ground, his body was almost blown to pieces. Fortunately, Ghost Rider's immortal body was indeed powerful enough, and his body was repaired after a while. The clone at the center of the explosion slowly came out. The repair speed of the other party was not slower than his own, which made Roger feel a little surprised. Are you surprised? I harvested more than 2,000 souls from the largest private prison in New York State. Now I am countless times more powerful than you. The clone Roger laughed ferociously, and the flames on his body soared into the sky, looking like Madara driving a Susan. The only difference is that he is Enma Susan. It's terrible, we need to change our strategy. Roger turned around and ran away, took out a motorcycle and rode on it. When he turned the accelerator, the exhaust pipe rumbled and he sped off. The clone was left with a confused look on his face. Looking at the dust swirling up in place, he suddenly realized that this shameless guy had escaped. Don't run away. There's a fight until dawn. The clone is in a hurry. What if the opponent escapes? How long can I hold on? As long as the opponent hides for a few years, even if I try my best to harvest souls, I will still die. The Ghost Rider's transformation and delaying his transformation does not mean that everything is really fine. If Roger is not killed, he will disappear from this world sooner or later. Fortunately, as a billionaire, there are quite a lot of luxury cars in the manor. The clone Roger found a sports car and immediately chased it. With the blessing of his enchantment, the speed of the sports car reached the speed of an airplane, while Roger was driving a Harley in front. The two of them chased each other and ran straight to the center of New York. Poor New York encountered a disaster for the first time, not the Hulk, but Roger. Hey, relax, those racing gangs won't come. How about we go to the bar to catch a girl after get off work tonight? Two traffic policemen were holding drinks and chatting together. As policemen on duty at night, their workload was much easier than that of their counterparts during the day. Because most of them hang out at night, you can tell if there is something wrong with them. While the two were chatting, a motorcycle caught fire and flew directly past them at a speed of more than kilometers per hour. The speedometer kept ringing. Both of them were dumbfounded. Before they could react, another faster car drove past and blew up their speedometer. Watching two burning things racing at speed, the two policemen were dumbfounded for a long time before finally picking up their walkie-talkies and calling for support. On highway, there was an unknown person racing, asking for support. The other person was very fast, over hours per hour, and the car seemed to be on fire. Hey, did you drink too much and the car caught fire? Bah, Roger fired in the back as he drove. Although you don't expect to kill the opponent, you can at least delay the opponent's speed. At the opponent's speed, the slightest resistance will cause bumps. Finally, he turned around, faced backward, and let the evil spirit motorcycle drive forward on its own, while he happily took the shotgun and hit the wheels driven by the clone one after another. No wonder others call you Za Luo, you are such a fool. Roger, the clone, gritted his teeth as he watched himself being hit like a kite by the other party, and was furious. Seeing Roger running towards the city center, the clone Roger seemed a little hesitant, because although he didn't have the memory of Roger's previous life and knew that there was a Comitage in the center of New York, he did know what Roger had been looking for. And he is very afraid of New York, as if there is something powerful here that makes him have to shrink his head and live a human life. But, after harvesting the clones of nearly 3,000 people, my skills increased greatly. I felt that I should not be able to die, and I could still escape even if I couldn't defeat them. A man with thousands of blues, fighting against a man with only a few dozen blues, would be able to kill him. This is why the replica Roger has been chasing the original Roger. He knew that Roger didn't harvest souls to become stronger at all, but instead continued to train himself in various spells. But I don't know the truth. How much water can be filled does not depend on how much water you pour into the bucket, but how big the bucket is. What Roger did was to continuously expand and strengthen the bucket, while the clone kept pouring water into the bucket. It was okay for a short time, but if it took a little longer, there would be problems. Seeing that he couldn't catch up no matter how hard he chased, and was being teased by the opponent, Roger, the mirror image, became fierce and glanced directly at the car with the flashing police lights not far away. He jumped out of the car halfway, kicked the policeman on the motorcycle away, and crashed into the glass of the shop. He didn't know whether he was alive or dead. Then the evil spirit was enchanted with fire, and like Roger, he changed into an evil spirit motorcycle. He picked up the rifle on the motorcycle and fired a burst of fire at Roger's front. Don't doubt why a police officer would carry a rifle. In a country where firearms are free, it is normal for police officers to carry rifles when going out. Blah blah blah. The clone kept firing with the rifle, as if it had unlimited bullets. It was indeed true. After the shots were fired, the enchanted rifle fired bullets transformed into flames, which were no less powerful than metal bullets. Explosions followed one after another, and two skeletons rode a magic motorcycle through the streets of New York, causing the police department's phone number to ring. The TV station even sent a helicopter to search for him in the sky. Paralysis, wouldn't it be more troublesome if the other party grabbed the helicopter? Roger fired a flame bullet directly at the side of the helicopter, scaring the helicopter pilot away quickly and not daring to get close. A little boy with glasses was standing on the balcony watering the flowers, preparing to go back to the house to sleep after watering. Rumbling, a flaming evil motorcycle speeded past the road in front of his house. The little boy stayed for a while, took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes, then put them back on, and then another fire-breathing evil motorcycle passed in front of him, and this time he was sure he saw it correctly. The little boy stared blankly at the evil motorcycle going away, and whispered, "It's so cool. I also want a motorcycle that can breathe fire. Peter, it's time to go in the house and go to bed. You have to go to school tomorrow." A voice came from the house. The little boy had no choice but to walk into the house reluctantly. "Oh, I understand, Auntie." When it was over, I didn't forget to take a look outside, only to find that there were still 2 traces of the locomotive passing by, because there were still 2 flames remaining on the ground. Roger and the clone chased and escaped. Fortunately, it was already past 3 in the morning and there were no people or cars on the street. Otherwise, there would have been many casualties. The 2 Wraith motorcycles soon arrived at Stark Tower, a landmark building in New York. "You run, it's useless even if you run to the end of the world. I have 100 times more energy than you, I will consume you to death, ha 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 ha." The clone Roger laughed wildly, and fired a few shots at the fleeing Roger from time to time. Lando was so willful. Ghost Rider's immortal body is not truly immortal, and a certain amount of energy will be lost every time it is repaired. In the words of netizens who play games, it is blue. Of course it will not die until the blue is used up. Once it is used up, it is just a skeleton. If it is broken, it will be dregs and ashes and cannot be recovered. Another Ghost Rider in Marvel was hit by an RPG and was fine. However, when he later fought with another agent chosen by Mephisto, he almost died. Therefore, don't think that you are immortal. At best, you can only resist attacks and recover quickly. Roger didn't reply and continued to circle around Stark Tower with the clone several times. When the impatient clone Roger fired wildly with a rifle, blasting all the surrounding roads into potholes, intending to prevent Roger from making a circle, Roger stopped. "What's wrong? You have no way to escape and want to fight," the clone said with a ferocious smile. "Hee, you can't catch me. Although your memory is the same as mine, your driving skills are not as good as mine." Roger smiled evilly and drove directly to Stark Tower. When he was about to hit the wall, he raised the front of the car and drove away. On the wall of the building, for a moment, a flaming evil locomotive lifted off the panels of Newton's coffin and drove vertically at a degree angle on the surface of Stark Tower toward the top of the building. "You can't escape." Roger, the clone, was in a hurry. It was past 3 o'clock, and it would be dawn in 3 or 4 hours. Ghost Rider's power is greatly reduced during the day, and he can only partially transform in places where the sun does not shine. In Marvel, Johnny couldn't transform during the day at first. After a period of adaptation and his own compatibility, or because of his extraordinary talent, he was finally able to transform during the day. Who knows how the sunlight will be during the day for a few hours. If Roger runs away, he will become more and more ostracized by the world and eventually disappear, so he can't help but be impatient. When the opponent was in the middle of firing, Roger smiled, took out the grenade and threw it behind him. A real man never looks back to see the explosion. Boom! A big explosion almost blew up the clone. Arriving at the top of the building, Roger jumped out of the car. With a strange smile, he opened the game panel and selected Character Skin, John Constantine. Distant Place, Mysterious Existence. God in charge of life and death. In the name of the Creator. Borrow the power of the gods. Here I invite you out of hell. In the name of the great magician, John Constantine. End all defenses and protections, listen to your call, and the devil will quickly subjugate you. When the clone came up to the roof, he saw a different face, but he was definitely Roger himself. The clone Roger was stunned for a moment. "What the hell is this?" Roger chuckled and said, "Are you surprised? Haven't you always wanted to know how I usually fight? Let me show you." Summoning the demon Fuxifa. The clone Roger felt bad. raised the enchanted rifle in his hand, and fired a series of full-power evil spirit bullets. But when he hit Roger, he was blocked by a layer of lightning armor. You know, there is a demon in hell called Lucifer. His ability is to control thunder and lightning in nature. Therefore, in a human city, even if a clone comes, it is like a personal nuclear power plant. And Roger, who was obsessed with love, stepped on the ground on the roof of the building and pointed with his index finger. Unfortunately, there is a palladium reactor here, which is why I brought you here. The palladium arc reactor is the same thing as a nuclear reactor. It is also a new energy source. It is said that it can supply the power of Stark Tower for more than 100 years. The reason why it has not been widely promoted is probably because nuclear reactors are cheaper. It was not until Shideko invented the new element reactor that was more environmentally friendly that it began to fully enter the world. At the moment, this palladium arc reactor only supplies energy to his family, but considering its small size, it should be able to supply the city with it for at least a few years. What did you just do? The clone Roger's face changed drastically. How could the bullet he hit on the opponent have no effect? He just increased the amount. The memories of both parties were the same. The attacks they made could definitely break through the defense. Even the Ghost Rider's immortal body was repaired and he also wore a thunder armor. Do you want to know? I summoned the big demon Lucifer from hell. Unfortunately, its ability is to control electricity. What's even more unfortunate is that there is a reactor under our feet. The clone Roger glared angrily. You actually used the power of hell, shameless. Roger rolled his eyes. Don't you have the same memory as me? Have you ever seen me want to face you? As soon as he finished speaking, New York began to turn off the lights on a large scale, because the surrounding electricity was intensively concentrated in the Stark Tower, and Roger used it. The clone Roger tried to escape on his bicycle, but at some point, a magic circle appeared in Stark Tower, surrounding the entire building. A wall formed by an electric arc appeared around the building. He's trapped. This is Solomon's Triangle with the ancient runes of Enoch, plus the power supply of the entire New York, and the reactor of Stark Tower. You can't break it. You won't think that I just surrounded Stark Tower. I just want to go around in circles with you, tisk tisk. When Roger drove the motorcycle in circles around the Stark Tower, the flames of the evil spirit motorcycle burned the ground directly, leaving behind black traces. These traces were magic runes with Roman traces remaining on them. Jay's evil spirit power. Because it's so big, it's hard to tell that it's drawing magic runes. If it weren't for the constant rejection of the magic mirror's rules, how could I have been so easily fooled by you? The clone Roger was furious. Do you know why Chao Feng can single-handedly defeat 3 masters without losing, but it takes Shuzu a long time to defeat Ding Chuncho alone? This is the difference in actual combat, or the difference between Old Zhong and New Zhong. They look the same, and Old Ginger is spicier. Seeing the other person's confused look and not knowing what he was talking about, Roger suddenly realized, I understand, you only copied the memories of my life. In this life, the clone Roger was even more confused. It seems so. The memories of the previous life were transported through time in the soul, but he only copied the memories of this body in this life. He didn't even have a golden finger, so he didn't dare to use the power of the devil, because he had to repay the loan, and don't use it yourself. Ahem, let's stop talking. Let's send you on your way soon. Remember not to choose me for reincarnation in your next life. After saying that, Roger's eyes turned dark and he began to control the reactor underground in the building to extract a large amount of energy. Then dense arcs of electricity directly enveloped the opponent, and the clone Roger was not willing to just sit back and wait for death. Directly turning on the power of his evil spirit to the maximum, a flame giant about 10 meters high appeared, looking like a Balrog. Yoshi, I'll come if you come, and I also like driving Gundams. Roger licked the corner of his mouth excitedly, and imitating his example, a giant made of electric energy appeared directly. The benefits of years of training in control instead of blindly pursuing increased skill are now revealed. Although it is borrowed power, it can be used with ease. The dense arc not only formed a blue giant, but also thoughtfully created a nice-looking image. After thinking about it, with a series of flames surrounding the arc giant, it looks even cooler. It has an unlimited power supply battery. Who is afraid of who? Oh God, What is that? Audience friends, two giants appear on top of Stark Tower. A TTB helicopter appeared not far away and started live broadcasting. Unfortunately, there was a large-scale power outage in the entire city and there was a power shortage, so few viewers could see it. Only rich people with backup generators and special institutions such as media hospitals can see it, but it doesn't matter, they can replay it. Starting from the pursuit of two young ghosts racing in the city at night, they originally thought they were some new motorcycles, but the New York police and them got up to work overtime at night. As a result, a big news immediately broke. A giant of fire and a giant of lightning and fire were dueling on top of Stark Tower. What he most wants to thank now is the power outage in New York, which prevented many other media from getting the news. This soup belongs to their company. Dear viewers, I am our reporter Dave. I am risking my life to broadcast live for you. If you die unfortunately, please tell my family, I love them. A reporter with a beard, holding a microphone, was saying goodbye seriously to the camera lens, but the excited expression on his face did not look like he was saying his last words. But a reporter who is about to receive the Pulitzer Prize. Oh, by the way, there is also photographer Bill Krupa, helicopter pilot Oleg Milner. Okay, got it, no more nonsense, let's start reporting. Maybe there was too much nonsense, so the main station reminded him to hurry up directly in the headset, and the bearded reporter Dave started to finish the long-winded beginning. What we are seeing now is a large-scale power outage throughout New York, and a blue shield has emerged around the Stark Tower, which seems to be made of electricity. As far as I know, this is not the current technology at all. It's a bit like magic to be able to do it. Hey, photographer Bill, let's take a picture of the ground. Look at those lines. Do they look like a magic circle? Sorry, we don't dare to get too close, because those lightning bolts are too scary. It doesn't matter if we die, we are just afraid that this wonderful live broadcast will be forced to end. The only good thing is that Stark has always abided by labor laws and no one worked overtime all night, so there should be no casualties on the building. However, there are a few security guards who may be trapped on the bottom floor of the building and cannot get out. Stark Tower is so big and tall that it doesn't look crowded when two 10-meter giants stand together on the top of the building for a duel. Seeing the two energy giants starting to fight, the photographer hurriedly turned the camera to the top of the building. Oh, they've started dueling, it started, let's see who they are. Boom, Roger controlled Thunder Susan and hit the opponent's Enma. Since the whole body is made of energy, it seems that if you try to construct a weapon, the damage will be similar to that of a fist, but it will not work. The two energy Gundams started punching each other on the roof of the building. The clone Roger also knew that with the energy supply of the entire New York, he could not break the magic circle around Stark. The only way was to kill Roger, the real owner. When two people fight, it's like one has studied in a martial arts school for a long time, and the other has been practicing fighting for many years after studying in a martial arts school. The latter will fight the former effortlessly. Although the memories are the same, it takes a certain amount of time to integrate them. Sometimes, we rely more on instinct to fight. Roger was quick with his hands and feet, inserting eyes, locking throats, and picking up gears. Sorry, I forgot that this move is useless after the transformation. The extremely angry clone increased his strength and kicked him, but Roger easily dodged it. Then he fell to the roof of another building and directly crushed a hole in the roof. Good boy, luckily Stark has money. If it were replaced by another building that cut corners, I'm afraid it might collapse. Then the giants controlled by the two men struggled together. The cloned giants were completely incomparable. The Balrog was condensed into a ball of flames and had no physical body. It was scattered by Roger's Susano, but the opponent Land Duo, inside back to normal again. The giants controlled by two people started fighting on the building with one punch and another. The giant that was Roger's clone was no match at all. Soon, the roof of the building was pocked with holes by the two men. There was a loud bang, one floor collapsed, and then it fell to the second floor. The clone's eyes lit up. The ground was impassable and he could escape from the underground. He didn't believe that Roger's magic circle could cover the underground as well. He dodged and jumped from the top of Stark Tower. Roger seemed to have guessed what the other person was thinking. After all, he was a copy of the same memory, so he quickly chased after him. Wow, everyone, we saw the battle between the two giants, which directly collapsed one floor of the Stark Tower. Fortunately, they went down, otherwise Tony would be heartbroken tomorrow. The two Gundams jumped off the building one after the other. When they were about to fall freely to the ground, the clones directly controlled their hands and inserted them into the wall of the building. Slowing down the speed of the falling body, he jumped and landed safely. Roger fell freely, finally aligned himself, kicked the wall with his foot, and jumped directly onto the clone. After a loud noise, the two Gundams collided together. Boom! The huge impact directly made a big pit on the ground, and in the big pit, the Balrog giant created by the clone was directly smashed to pieces by Roger. Roger's Susano directly trampled the clone into ashes, watching as the bones around the opponent were about to move and gather together to recover. Roger raised his foot, made a bang, and stepped on it hard. He didn't forget to crush his foot hard and rotate it a few times to ensure that the opponent was broken into bones. Then he enchanted the opponent with flames and lightning to turn the bones into slag. Ash! Are you dead? Roger slowly removed the Susano Gundam and searched carefully in the pit. He wanted to learn from the Dragon Ball next door to eliminate Boo and ensure that every bone of the opponent was burned to ashes. However, Roger will not disarm the magic circle before dawn. Anyway, the reactor in Stark Tower supplies energy, and he does not have to worry about it, even if the fighter jets launch missiles. Oh, friends in front of the TV, you saw it, the battle between the two giants is over, the lightning giant defeated the flame giant. Dave, who was doing live broadcast on the plane, said with excitement. I don't know if we can go down and interview this giant. The other party used this shield to surround it. The battle did not spread to other places. He shouldn't be a bad guy. I will discuss it with the photographer and decide. After all, it concerns the two of us. Personal life. Poor Stark Tower, I don't know how many hundreds of millions it will cost to renovate this time. But if Tony is rich, he will only sleep with a few fewer women. According to statistics, he spends hundreds of millions on women every year, which is why he is popular with Victoria's Secret girls. Just when Dave ordered the pilot to land the helicopter slowly, trying to see if it could pass the magic circle, there was a big explosion inside. The aftermath of the explosion was so large that it shook the entire magic circle several times. Fortunately, the arc reactor had enough energy to hold on. The helicopter was frightened to death by this wave of explosions. He no longer dared to approach for interviews. He could only shoot from a distance. The courage to die before was no longer there. Look at me, the clone Roger quickly recovered after self-destructing. With his own Lando, he directly caught the real Roger and released the Eye of Judgment. Looking into the other person's dark eyes, the fire of his soul was slowly ignited, and the clone Roger couldn't help but laugh wildly at the sky. Ha 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 ha, fool, the demon-possessed Eye of Judgment has worked on you. Do you think I am really unable to fight back after being beaten by you? I have been waiting for this moment. Pig's Foot Pond Complete Book. The clone looked at the magic circle gradually dispersing around it, and slowly felt a sense of emptiness, just like a man going to a certain occasion, in sage mode after passion. And Roger on the ground began to slowly turn into a mummy. The clone Roger nodded contentedly and burped. Suddenly, he felt uncomfortable. The battle tonight was too intense, and the ubiquitous murmur in his brain began to intensify and became extremely noisy. It was as if thousands of people had been whispering in his ears. That kind of creepy chattering made people crazy and desperate, as if they wanted to cut open their own heads to cancel the sounds inside. The clone Roger slapped his head hard several times, trying to drive away the murmurs. It's so noisy, shut up. But it doesn't matter. The clone Roger directly cancelled the transformation of Ghost Rider and degenerated into a human. This kind of whispering has almost disappeared. As long as you give him a period of time to digest it, he will slowly learn to control the Ghost Rider directly, just like the original body, so that there will be no more side effects. Spirit that colludes with Satan. Use the power of contract to expel fragmentation. Imprisoned creatures, listen to your evil deeds of Satan. A burst of fast and accurate spells were uttered from the mouth of Roger, who had turned into a mummy. In an instant, the originally extinguished magic circle lit up again, and then changed the pattern, directly binding the clone tightly. It's not easy to absorb. It comes from the power of the demon Fuxifa. He is a big demon in hell. He has harvested the souls of thousands of people. There must be murmurs everywhere in your soul. Fuxifa's demonic power was the straw that broke the camel's back. After the mummy stood up, he applied a smear on his face, and it immediately returned to a human form, exactly like Roger. The clone Roger looked at the original body in front of him in horror. Why are you not dead? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Chapter 51. Impossible, absolutely impossible. You have clearly summoned a demon to possess you. How could you still be alive after being hit by the Eye of Judgment? The clone looked collapsed, with a ruined worldview. Indeed, just like the witch heart demon, as a rare soulless demon, nothing happened when he was hit by the Eye of Judgment. In the end, he summoned hundreds of souls into his body, and then he was hit by the Eye of Judgment again, and he immediately became G. When the other party saw Roger's different face, it was Roger who had put on the character's skin and was possessed by the summoned demon. After getting the Ghost Rider for several years, Roger has been using it very carefully, because he knows the nature of the Ghost Rider better than the clone. The Ghost Rider, also known as the Wrath of God, is the legendary god who brings disaster and destroys the world. Sent supervisors. The supervisor is also an avenger who avenges those who have been harmed by innocent people, but it is definitely not a good thing. In the end, it is only himself who is unlucky by harvesting souls without limit. The clone has harvested too many human souls with the Eye of Judgment, and its endurance has far exceeded his limit. He deliberately fell into the trap just so that the demon summoned this time could be harvested into his body. Roger himself is the Ghost Rider and knows the purpose of the Eye of Judgment better than the other party, so he can naturally judge whether the system's character skin can deceive the Eye of Judgment. The answer is yes. After being harvested, Roger's high-level character skin, Akon, was completely scrapped. As for the demonic power that was taken into the soul by the other party, it was also mixed with a lot of New York City's current, as well as the energy from the Stark reactor, energy. So much energy was directly cut into the opponent's body, which naturally caused indigestion. To Roger's surprise, the opponent did not explode and die, but unexpectedly degenerated into a human body. Surprisingly, he didn't die, so he changed his tactics and directly used magic to trap the opponent. The clone Roger, whose body was in a human state and whose abilities were trapped by magic, tried to forcefully transform and break through, and the result would probably be a complete explosion. Are you surprised? I'm sorry I can't tell you why. Let you die in peace, because walls have ears. Roger blinked. Walls with ears of course refer to those who can use time props to peek. It doesn't matter if any secrets are exposed, even if the 72 stunts in bed are exposed, but your golden fingers must not be exposed. Because some of the props in this world are so scary, even if you are in a deserted place, they can see your chat from back in time. Please let me go. After all, we are brothers from the same mother. I am the person who understands you best in the world. I know that you are very lonely in this world. You can't find anyone you can trust. Come on, you kid, you know this. That's right, that's right. If I wasn't lonely, I wouldn't go to Hollywood to find girls all the time. Roger nodded like a chicken pecking at rice, but walked into the copy without stopping. Body. You still want to kill me. The clone could see Roger's plan at a glance. Sigh, although you are a copy of me, you are still not me, otherwise you would use an 80-year-old mother with a baby waiting to be fed to beg me for mercy. Roger sighed with a look on his face. As expected, I am the only time traveler in this world, and I am as lonely as snow. Copy. Eye of Judgment. When the other party saw Roger's eyes had already used their ultimate trump card, the Eye of Judgment, which instantly ignited the clone's soul. To Roger's surprise, after the soul was ignited, the clone burned very quickly. How should I put it? Roger felt that the soul of the other party was very fragile. If Roger's soul is like a 1,000-year-old tree, the other person is like a sapling. Watching the clone's body slowly turn into a mummy, and finally turned into ashes. Why? Roger touched his chin and sighed. Maybe it was because shortly after he was born, the magic mirror copied the body and Ghost Rider, but it was unable to copy a complete soul. As a result, once the other party released the transformation of Ghost Rider, can't even resist. Hiccup. Roger accidentally hiccuped, which was a bit uncomfortable. His belly was about to burst. He hurriedly released the transformation and looked at the dense flashing lights around Stark Tower. How many police officers were needed? Woody, you have to run away quickly. After the transformation was released, of course it was no longer possible to use the evil motorcycle. Roger looked around and found it. Just lift the lid of a sewer on the ground, jump in, cover it, and run away. Instead of being chased by dense police cars on the ground, and with live broadcasts from planes in the sky, Roger would rather jump directly into the sewer and run away. What's wrong with the smell? Pragmatism is the way to go. What's more, isn't it just a matter of a gas mask? After jumping into the sewer, I put on a gas mask. After thinking about it, I took out a bottle of perfume and sprayed it around the mask. Well, it's delicious. Not long after Roger left, a space-time gate suddenly appeared where he and the clone had fought, and a group of people who looked like future warriors came out. Then they held a machine and seemed to be testing something. Finally, a group of people looked around and stared directly at the sewer. Captain, the other party seems to have escaped from the sewer. A big black man who looked like the leader of the team said directly, "Let's go, the other party shouldn't be able to run far. Don't move, put up your hands. Don't move, put down your weapon." It turned out that after Roger's magic circle was closed, the terrifying arc of electricity disappeared around Stark, and the various police and special forces that were summoned began to move forward. As soon as Roger left, these space-time warriors just met them and were surrounded by them. "Let's go." The team leader pressed a mysterious object and walked into the time and space door first. At this time, the police around them started shooting. What was strange was that they stopped at the moment of shooting. Not only did the bullets stop, but time also stopped. Then after they finished walking and closed the time-space gate, time began to flow backwards, and the police began to go backwards. After a while, they returned to the moment when they came out of the time-space gate. The police around them also forgot what happened just now, walked up to the front of the building and started looking for the two fighting giants. Early the next morning, in a large manor by the sea, there was a small part of a very large villa hanging on the cliff. Inside lay a man who was in his prime, but his face looked a bit pale and blue. Lying on both sides was a beautiful woman. If you look closely, you will find that they are the top 10 beauties in this year's Supermodel magazine. Sir, it's not good." There was a knock on the door. "Happy, didn't I tell you, no matter what happens, even if Stark Industries is gone, don't bother me." "Boss, Stark Industries is really gone." What? When the pale young man heard the news, he lost all sleep and pushed away the two beauties beside him who were showing off their beauty. He turned over and put on his pants, then opened the door and walked out, asking his bodyguard leader Happy what happened. "Booze, you can take a look at today's news. 2 monsters appeared last night and fought in your Stark Tower." Tony directly asked Jarvis to open all the news about Stark, and then was dumbfounded. In the news, the host Dave, with a big beard, introduced the events in Stark Tower with a look of gloating. The top floor collapsed, and the entire building's glass was shattered. Fortunately, he didn't let the employees work overtime all night. No one was injured, but the building directly melted several ugly burnt tires from the ground to the roof. There were also 2 very exaggerated holes on the wall, as if they had been dug out with force. The front door of Stark Tower was directly destroyed, with a huge hole. As if it had been hit by a terrorist attack, this landmark building in the center of New York was completely destroyed. The renovation was probably worth less than a few $100 million. Adding the time and cost to the company, it was probably more than $1 billion. But for him, this couldn't be called distressing. What he was curious about was what caused it. "Sir, due to the large-scale power outage in New York at that time, the surveillance could not capture the footage. There were only some videos taken by the helicopter at the scene." Tony said. "Show it to me, Jarvis." "As you wish, sir." Then it was released. First, before the power outage, 2 burning locomotives racing in New York at a speed of more than per hour. Due to the limited high-definition cameras that are popular in this era, most of the pixels are not that good, and you can only capture a flaming motorcycle. Will-o'-the-wisp boy. For some reason, these words came to Tony's mind. Finally, it was taken by a helicopter. The picture is quite clear, because 2 10-meter-tall giants were fighting on the top of the building. They were so big that they could be seen clearly. There was a small mushroom cloud behind it, and then the helicopter was so frightened that it quickly left and hid 10 miles away to shoot. The picture was very blurry. Jarvis, can you analyze what that is? Tony asked curiously. Sir, the power supply to all the machines in Stark Tower was cut off, so there is no data at that time. But preliminary analysis suggests it may be caused by magic. Magic? Are you kidding? Is there such a thing in this world? Tony laughed. He would rather it be done by the future soldier than believe in magic. Happy on the side said, Ahem, by the way Booze, I forgot to tell you something. Stark's large reactor has run out of energy. That reactor ran out of energy. That could power Stark Tower for 100 years. Tony's jaw almost dropped in surprise. What happened today had such an impact on him. When it was almost dawn, Roger returned to his kennel exhausted, took off all his smelly clothes, threw away his gas mask, then casually flushed the water, fell on the bed and fell asleep after coming out. Not only because of the battle, but more importantly because of the harvesting of the clone's soul. His soul was mixed with too many miscellaneous things, just like a person eating indiscriminately from morning to night, causing gastrointestinal indigestion. Coupled with the trace of demonic power that was finally harvested into the clone, as well as the soul power of the clone itself, the indigestion worsened directly to vomiting and diarrhea. Of course, after the transformation was released, he couldn't vomit or have diarrhea, but he felt extremely uncomfortable. It seemed as if there were thousands of resentful spirits whispering in his ears, but there seemed to be none, and he was very dizzy. Roger fell directly onto the bed and fell asleep without even wearing any clothes. A few hours later, something strange happened. A space-time door opened directly into Roger's living room. A team of space-time warriors who appeared at the scene last night walked out and took out a machine to test it. The target is on the second floor, go up. Just as the team was about to go up to the second floor, a little girl suddenly disappeared from a painting hanging in the living room. Then behind them, a little loli appeared with dark eyes, face as pale as a zombie, and holding a doll in her hands. Suddenly, the team of space warriors felt a chill on their backs. One of them turned around and was startled. Captain, there's something behind you. The team leader looked back and saw that he was an innocent ghost. Cut it. Yes. One of them took out something like an electric shock baton and stabbed the innocent little loli. Logically speaking, the innocent soul cannot be attacked by such weapons, but the opponent's electric shock baton seems to be different. It is like an eraser appearing out of thin air, wiping the innocent soul from head to toe. Then a group of people walked towards the second floor, with two armed men leading the way. Ah, my foot is broken. The one walking in front hugged his foot and wailed in pain. Because when he stepped on the stairs, he collapsed directly, and then a bear trap caught his feet. Fake, is this guy crazy? He even installed bear traps in his own home. The squad leader's face turned ugly. Oh no, the other party may have heard the noise. Let's go up quickly and don't let him escape. The group of people started running up again, but another one got caught in a bear trap. Ah, my leg is broken too. This fool actually put the bear trap again. Everyone pay attention to your feet. Finally, the remaining people reached the second floor without any danger, only to find that water had been sprinkled on the ceiling, and along with the water came AC power. However, their combat uniforms were of high quality and were waterproof and electricity-proof. As soon as they walked to the room and opened the door, another burst of sleeping gas appeared. An old black man who carelessly failed to close his mask was hit again. Roger on the sofa sniffed the sleeping gas and slept more soundly. This guy has set up so many traps and slept like a dead pig. I was worried for a long time and thought he had escaped. A space-time warrior picked up a machine and pointed it at Roger. It made a beeping sound and nodded towards the captain. It's the target. The squad leader waved his hand angrily, put on the neck cuffs and escorted him away. Angry that this guy had set up so many traps at home, he didn't even bother to give him clothes to wear and just took him away. A group of people entered the space-time gate. Roger, who was extremely mentally exhausted, fell into a daze in his sleep. I dreamed that I seemed to be escorted into Auburn prison naked, and then a group of dead old black men complained angrily about how the Ghost Rider cut them into leeks and ate them. Then he said he wanted revenge, grabbed his hands firmly, and then held him down and kneeled on the ground with his legs spread open. So Roger broke out in a cold sweat and woke up directly. Go away, I'll knock your lungs out. What kind of ghost dream is this? Hey, who are you? Why did you catch me here? This is against the freedom law. I want to call my lawyer. Roger yelled, because at this moment he found himself in a base that looked like science fiction, and the surrounding buildings looked like expensive things. Then not only did he have handcuffs on his hands, which directly restricted his strength, but he also had a weird thing around his neck. He didn't know what it was. The people escorting him didn't say anything, and just led him forward. Hey, you guys are talking, you are not allowed to hire a lawyer, right? There is someone above me, George knows, the future director of New York City, an old acquaintance of mine, he. Shut up and go in. Hey, you guys are going too far. At least give me something to wear. Look at me. The team leader escorting Roger pushed Roger over with a dark look on his face, but still said nothing. I understand, are you jealous that my second brother is older than you? As a gay second brother, but he is only as good as a toothpick, you must be very inferior. Unable to bear it any longer, Captain Hiron picked up his gun and pointed it at Roger with the butt of the gun. Roger dodged it directly, and then tripped the opponent with a hook. Just when Roger wanted to continue to step forward and punch the opponent, a soldier pressed something. Roger immediately disappeared from the spot, then appeared at the previous location. Roger then rushed forward, then disappeared again, and then appeared again. Time and space magic. No, a time and space machine, it's so hard to beat your lungs. Roger is honest now. Where is this ghost place? Let's wait and see what happens. After arriving at the front and registering with a clerk, Roger was sent to an elevator. In the elevator, a robot directly put on his clothes and then sent him to the last floor. After arriving on the lower floor, there was a yellow-lit hall, as if going to some department to apply for documents. The hall was empty. A soldier motioned for Roger to come forward and get his number. After taking his number, he waited in the hall. At this time, an animation was played directly on a large screen in the hall, and a yellow clock animation man came out to speak. Welcome to the Time Variation Management Bureau. Roger, I am Miss Time, the yellow clock villain introduced with a smile. My duty is to let you understand something before you accept the trial. Let's not waste time, sit down, pick up the pen and listen to me. A long time ago, there was a multi-dimensional war, and countless timelines fought with each other for hegemony. Almost everything was destroyed, and at that moment, the omniscient and omnipotent guardian of time appeared. At that time, the all-knowing and all-powerful guardians of time appeared, and they merged the multidimensional universe into one timeline and restored peace. This is the sacred timeline. The following playback basically means that a butterfly flapped its wings, causing a tornado, which then caused an abnormality in the timeline. Then their mission here is to catch those people and things that affect the timeline, and then judge and correct them, cut out these things, reset the timeline, and return the timeline to normal. Roger, was it because he, the time traveler, caused the turmoil in the timeline? Ahem, have you misunderstood something? I have done a lot of good things. I helped the old lady cross the road, helped the tadpoles, the children find their mothers, helped the elementary school students with their homework, and even gave them full marks on the exams. I have never done any bad things, and I am really more unjust than Doi. Oh my God. Roger covered his face with his hands, trying to squeeze out a few tears, but found that he couldn't squeeze them out without loud jong. It is up to the judge to decide whether or not, please move forward. In this way, Roger was escorted to the next place, which was the court of the so-called Time Variation Administration. The court was still empty. There were no people, not even the jurors, and the auditorium was even more empty. There was only one judge and a few soldiers. Isn't this the sign of a memorial arch? Roger couldn't help but roll his eyes. A woman on the judge's seat banged her hammer and said, "Time prisoner number L1129 Roger, also known as Jerry, you are accused of violating sequence July 20th 88. What is your defense?" "I want to know what I committed." Roger looked confused. "You can tell me what I committed. I know the number. What you did during the battle at Stark Tower led to the disappearance of Iron Man." Tony Stark became interested in magic and turned to studying magic. What's more serious is that Doctor Strange also disappeared, and Tony directly became the Supreme Sorcerer. Later, when Thanos gathered 6 gems to destroy half of the creatures in the universe, without Iron Man studying the quantum field and going back to the past, half of the universe would be gone. The resurrection of man. Omega, all this is because of your variable nature. Your influence was so great that it directly destroyed life in half the universe. Hey, don't blame me. People choose their own profession. This is a symbol of freedom. How can you violate the symbol of freedom and force people to become Iron Man? Roger was so angry that Tony refused to be Iron Man. Running to learn magic, there is already a world like this, how can you blame it randomly? Besides, do you know who my backer is? It's the Supreme Mage. You sneaked into her old man's territory to arrest people. You've crossed the line. Do you have their consent first? It's useless to say more, Prisoner Roger. Since you are at the highest level of harm to violate the sacred timeline, I now officially sentence you to a mutilated sentence. Please sign and execute it immediately. Roger. After working on it for a long time, people are not afraid of the Ancient One at all. In other words, can these people who use technology to travel through the timeline defeat the Ancient One? If there is an Ancient One who also needs to be cut, can these people do it better than him? Seeing a soldier holding an electric shock baton and trying to stab Roger directly, he was knocked down by the electric shock baton. Of course Roger's body would be fine, but he didn't believe that this thing was just an ordinary electric shock baton. But his body seemed to be sealed by something, and neither spells nor Ghost Rider could be used. Even my own system would reset its time every time I took something off my neck, and then a weird time force would bring me back to the previous second. But his physical fitness and skill were still there. He tilted his head to avoid the opponent's electric shock baton, leaned close to him, then raised his knees and aimed at the knee between the soldier's legs. Oh, the soldier rolled his eyes, as if he had experienced the most painful thing in the world, and curled up like a shrimp. Roger looked at it for a moment. Why did the person who was hit by the second brother not cover his crotch with his hands, but his head instead? Could it be that the director of the TV series is lying to me again? He didn't have time to think about whether he would hold his head instead of covering his crotch in order to hit the second brother, because several soldiers on duty at the scene had already rushed over. Regarding this issue, let's wait until we have time in the future and ask the Hollywood Liebusters program team to find someone to demonstrate it live. I have to find a way to open the collar on my neck. One of the soldiers stabbed Roger with an electric shock baton. Roger kicked the soldier who was bent on the ground away, bumped into the opponent's stick, and then used his foot to pick up the electric shock baton on the ground, inside. Ah! The soldier who was hit was wiped away bit by bit from his body like an eraser. It hurts your lungs, what the hell? Roger screamed strangely, turned around and ran away. A good man will not suffer the loss in front of him. He will wait until he takes off the handcuffs and the thing around his neck to let these guys know why the flowers are so red. At this moment, a team leader took out a mysterious remote control and pressed it on Roger's neck. It was like a stop button was pressed on Roger's body. The brain can think, but the body slows down countless times, like crawling at a snail. Cut him, the squad leader yelled. Finally, an electric shock baton hit Roger. Like the security guard before, Roger's body disappeared as if it had been erased. Not willing to accept it, I finally got reborn and ended up in a world where the Cosmic Family Planning Office has purple sweet potato spirits. It would be nice to dress up as a Kryptonian, but if he comes unexpectedly, forget it, live your own life peacefully. Anyway, if you die, someone will snap your fingers and save you. Unexpectedly, a Time Variation Management Bureau appeared out of nowhere and claimed to maintain the sacred timeline. He also slandered himself as a butterfly that changed the timeline, and wanted to crop himself. I didn't know what cropping was before, but now I know. It's a pity that before I traveled through time, I had only seen movies, not comics or TV series. I don't know how many parallel worlds there are, but I guess the director himself can't remember them. Roger opened his eyes and blinked. The cuffs on his neck were no longer around him. In the haze, he seemed to be surrounded by several people. Where is this place? Am I dead? Guys, the deader is a Kong. Go find him. My name is George. Heaven is okay, but if it is hell, then the creditors are still not allowed to beat themselves to death. You're not dead, but if you don't get up again, you will really be dead. There is also a short-tailed alligator among the three people. The young and old are white, and the black man in his prime is bald, which is weird. The old man and the crocodile both wore horn-like headdresses. The remaining bald black man held a golden hammer, and the young man held a king's crown. This combination. Ah, who are you? Did you save me? Roger asked in surprise. We are all Loki, what do you call us? The old man stretched out his hand to Roger. Roger stretched out his hand and shook the other person's hand. Roger, I believe you, what timeline did they cut you from? The old man looked at Roger with a suspicious look on his face. Okay, actually I'm Loki too, Roger blinked, and with a thought, he quickly made a Hiddleston look. Then I put on a set of game skins, and a young man named Loki appeared. The old man showed an expression that was indeed true. Let me tell you, you can't fake a person's eyes. Your eyes are very cunning. Who else could you be besides Loki? Roger, let's go. This is not the place to talk. Ilios is coming soon. If you don't want to die, follow him. The old man said. 4 people and 1 crocodile walked on the way back, hunting a few purple chickens of unknown species on the way. Have you ever seen a chicken with its head and neck disconnected? Lucky for readers, Roger now has it on hand. The purple chicken has a small ball floating in midair on its head. The mouth and eyes can't be seen. I really don't know how the chicken eats. It looks like this floating ball is its head. A broken world, the remains of various industrial machines, the surroundings looked like a doomsday world, everything was there. There are buildings like the Twin Towers appearing strangely in the wild, and there are also a few lonely battleships lying in a state of disarray. There's even a starship or 2 visible. Wogo, what is that thing? Gundam, Roger asked in surprise. In the distance, there is a sci-fi-like robot that is tens of meters tall. It is missing a hand and is lying on the ground in rust. Its body is covered with vines. Haha, this world has everything. As long as it affects the sacred timeline, those guys will cut it, whether it is a building or a robot. The one who spoke was the Black Loki. Roger was stunned for a moment, and then he realized that the other person was holding a golden hammer. The hammer was covered with mysterious magic runes. Isn't this a Meow's hammer? Hey, brother, isn't that Mjolnir you're holding? Isn't that thing Thor's weapon? Roger opened his eyes wide and said with a look of disbelief. This world has been transformed too seriously by magic. Ah, but it seems to be normal. Loki has turned black, so it doesn't seem strange to have Thor's hammer. Is it weird? In addition to the infinite gems, the Time Variation Administration will keep them. There are a lot of other things here. You can dig up a few Thor's hammers just by picking up a shovel and digging around in any place. This is the end of time. All the things that should not exist in the timeline will be cut here. Over time, over thousands of years, there are all kinds of things. The old man Loki said with a smile. Maybe you will be excited about treasure hunting at first, but after a while you will find that there is no meaning to anything else except survival. Survival? Roger asked curiously, is there anything here that can repair so many locusts? Is it that dark cloud? Roger looked at the distance. He saw a group of dark clouds floating in the sky, rolling around looking for something to eat from time to time. The dark clouds were filled with dense lightning. A single arc could feel like the energy contained in it could split him into ash. At this time, a large battleship suddenly fell out of the space-time gate. No need to guess, it must have been cut out and violated the sacred timeline. Roger took a look. Good guy, it's still the Red Boss's side, a bit like World War II. The rolling dark clouds seemed to have discovered the battleship and rolled directly over to feed. Fire. The soldiers on board the battleship looked frightened, not knowing what was going on, but facing this thing that looked more like a monster than a dark cloud, they just opened fire. The powerful firepower hit the dark clouds, but failed to hit the entity and passed through it. As long as the dark clouds that swept over were wrapped inside, no one could get out. You see, that is the enemy of our existence, Ilios. A monster that specializes in eating time-cut monsters, devouring all time and matter. They came to a secret base, opened the hidden cover above, and several people walked down. It turned out that it was a spaceship covered by the earth and buried deep underground. For some reason, Roger felt that there were many things emitting strange energy around him. This was something he could sense only after he had been constantly exercising his subtle control abilities for a long time. Moreover, among the group of locusts in front of him, the one who felt most dangerous to Roger was not the big black Loki holding the Meowth hammer. Not that domineering young Loki, that crocodile, ignore it. But the old Loki who was ordinary and dying. Because Roger couldn't feel the slightest bit of weak energy fluctuations on the other party's body, not even radiation, as if he was really just an ordinary human being. What does this mean? It means that the other party's control over his own power has reached an incredible level. People who can control their own power completely and extremely finely are not necessarily the most powerful, but powerful people will definitely control their own power. This also made Roger feel a little wary of the other party. This old man was too unfathomable. Moreover, the door of this underground building is also covered with magic disguise, without any flaws at all, and the opponent can remove it with a wave of his hand. After arriving at the underground building, several people were obviously relieved. After the young Loki put the crocodile in the water, he fed him a bottle of wine, and then sat on one of his thrones. The others also took their own drinks and were minding their own business. Roxy wine, fine Pinot Noir. Old Loki handed Roger a can of wine directly. In the basement, there are all kinds of miscellaneous supplies. Every time they cut out things, not just people, but sometimes a building will be thrown in together. This is how our supplies come from. The old Loki gestured, then picked up the wine and took a sip. Tell me your story, the young Loki pointed at Roger with interest. This little brat, you are so cool. Ahem, I don't seem to have anything to say. I just had a fight with a knockoff, a replica, in Stark Tower, and then they caught me and came back. Then those guys slandered me, saying that I influenced Big Shit, causing him to not do his job properly in the sacred timeline, and instead of being his Iron Man, he became a mage. As a result, because there is no Iron Man studying the quantum realm, there is no way to go back in time to get the gems, and half of the life in the universe cannot be resurrected. Ah. Why are you looking at me like this? Roger spread his hands, expressing helplessness. Hiss, life in half the universe. Loki, the short-tailed crocodile on the side, roared and nodded. The other three locusts were directly stunned by Roger. The old Loki, who didn't even know his pants were wet, quickly picked up the wine in his hand and took a sip. Awesome, the reason why we were cut to this world at the end of time is nothing compared to you. Ha 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 ha. Half of the life in the universe cannot be resurrected because of you, you really deserve to be cut off. The big black Loki also laughed loudly and said, ha 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 ha, you are so interesting Loki. You can be a king. You have done more bad things than all of us combined. Ha, Loki, the young man sitting on the throne with a golden crown on his head, felt a little unhappy. Hey, this is none of my business, okay. I'm fighting with others. It's his freedom to change his profession. It's unforgivable to interfere with other people's freedom in a free country. Roger was dissatisfied. Road. Don't just talk about me. What about you? I'm quite curious about you too. Roger said. No one wants to hear it, said old Loki. I'd like to hear it. Roger looked at the old Loki longingly with the eyes of a child seeking knowledge. The corner of the elderly Loki's mouth twitched. Don't look at me with that disgusting look. If you want to know, just tell me. In my timeline, everything was normal until Thanos attacked my spaceship. Roger couldn't help but interject, didn't you assassinate him? In the original timeline, Loki always killed Thanos in a sneak attack with a weapon. According to Roger's memory before time travel, it seems that it was Luoji, the mage assassin, who tried to sneak attack Thanos with a dagger, but Thanos grabbed his neck and crushed him to death like a chicken. Later, it seems that his brother Thor's strength has skyrocketed due to the power of revenge, and in the end he was even able to defeat Thanos with 6 infinity gauntlets. The chess move just missed, and the opponent missed the head, and the opponent ran away, and then destroyed the gem. Later, after taking revenge, the god of thunder lost the motivation to take revenge and directly degenerated into the fat god of thunder. The old Loki said in surprise, assassinate him. I don't mean to offend, my friend. As a mage, why do you need to stab someone at close range with a dagger? Roger, as a mage from Karmatage, why should he use spells when he can use fists? The old Loki showed a contemptuous expression and said seriously, weapons are worthless in front of Loki's spells. They will hinder our magical potential. Loki, the black man on the side, couldn't help it. He glanced at his meow hammer and interjected, but they look very powerful, and the battle will be easier with their assistance. Yes, but when you are choked and they fall to the ground, the old Loki continued with a smug look on his face. I created a very realistic magical projection of myself, and even Thanos was deceived by me. Then I lay in a pile of corpses and pretended to be dead. After hiding the truth, I wandered in the universe. Away from Thor, away from everything, I thought about everything about the universe and where I should be, and then I suddenly felt that wherever I went, I would only bring pain. So I settled on a remote planet, alone, living in isolation for a long, long time. I bet this is how you practiced hard to become a great magician. Roger couldn't help but ask, then how did you get caught by them? The old Loki shrugged, I was too lonely and missed Thor. Just when I was about to leave that planet, they came. Dear Locus, because we can only play one role, that is, the exiled god. The old Loki gestured and raised his glass, and then the three Locus raised their glasses, cheers, god of exile. After several people finished drinking, Roger then asked the other two. After I conquered Iron Man and Captain America, I got 6 gems before the Black Loki could finish his words. The alligator Loki beside him couldn't help but roared in a low voice. He's saying, liar, the old Loki translated with a smile. At least my timeline didn't eat the wrong neighbor's cat. Black Loki curled his lips. Roar, Crocodile Loki roared, and jumped up to bite the Black Loki. The old Loki hurriedly stepped forward to stop the fight between the two. What about you? Roger gestured to Loki, the energetic young man sitting in a high position. Me, I killed Thor and became the king. The young Loki curled his lips, then they captured me and took me back to the Time Variation Administration, saying that I had changed the sacred timeline and cut me out. Just come to this world at the end of time. Hiss. This is cruel enough. He killed his brother to become an enlightened man when he was just a young boy. Cutting is what the Time Variation Administration calls it. To put it bluntly, it means cutting off the little butterfly flapping its wings in the original timeline and throwing it into this garbage treatment plant. And there is a monster in this treatment plant that specializes in eating garbage. His name is Elias, which is the dark cloud in the sky. It can swallow matter and time, so it eats all the garbage thrown over it as food. According to the introduction of the elderly Loki, the larger the body, the easier it is to attract its attention. Can't Thor's hammer hit it? It seems like lightning is circling in its body. The Black Loki said helplessly, friends, those who are not cropped here are all strong people in various timelines. After all, only the strong ones have the greatest chance of affecting the timeline. They have all tried it, and they have nothing to do with Avery. Oz is completely useless. No one knows whether that thing has a heart and a brain. No one dares to rush into its body and try, because no one can survive after being swallowed by it. What about you? Roger asked the old Loki, brother, you are the eldest here. What do you think can be done to defeat that monster? Or is there any way to escape? The old Loki shook his head, there is no way. This is the end of time, a twisted world. Unless you know space-time magic and time magic, you can't defeat that monster. Unfortunately, these two types of magic can the person is simply. Anyway, I have never seen him. Unfortunately, there is an organization on Earth that knows time and space magic. If it were time magic, do props count? Roger thought for a while, and it seemed that no one really knew how to use time magic. Most of them used props. After chatting for an hour or two, everyone felt a little bored, but that's how it is in this world. We can't go out and wander around. There is a man-eating monster outside. Apart from going out to buy food, most of us stay underground in a daze, chat. Roger suddenly remembered something and turned to ask the black man Loki, man, did you just say there are a lot of Thor's hammers here? Huh, you want it? Black Loki asked. Yes, although I agree with that person's statement, magic is the king, but magic requires accumulation over time. If there are ready-made weapons at the moment, I will definitely use them first. Ha 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 ha, don't think about it. The priest made my hammer and added my soul mark to it. Not everyone can pick it up. You should give up on this idea. But if you want a hammer, go get it. I remember there was one outside before. The exit was covered with soil. You can find a shovel and dig it yourself. Black Loki pointed outside. Okay, I'm good at digging for treasures. Roger licked his lips and was about to go out to dig for treasures. At this time, the king's boy Loki said, if you see anything wrong, remember to come back immediately. In addition to Helios, there is also an idiot Loki named the President outside. President, he's just an idiot who wants to compete with me for the throne. When he gets here, he still wants to rule the world, and he has recruited a large number of motley Loki as his subordinates. Roger. As expected of Loki, when he arrived in this world, everyone gathered together and wanted to roll up, tisk tisk. Roger happily climbed out of the basement and came outside. He carefully looked around and started digging when he saw no one. He closed his eyes and sensed that although the Ghost Rider was suffering from severe diarrhea and indigestion, he could not come out. But with the magic and energy sensing he has cultivated for many years, I believe it will be no problem to find a powerful Mjolnir, unless the cat hammer has no energy. It turned out to be treasure hunting, so what could be more suitable than a miner? Of course it's the Tool Man Miner Goblin. Protector of the earth, guardian of soil foundation. Welcome to this sacred place. With the earth, with your body, and the wisdom of the ancients. Salute to you, please come quickly. Please come quickly. After Roger finished reading, he found that the miner goblin who came was a little bit less. It seems that this Helios has very good teeth and can eat people without spitting out their bones, not even leaving their souls. But one miner goblin was enough. Roger instructed it to dive underground, look for the coordinates of a hammer, and tell him when it found it. Soon, the goblin came up and expressed the coordinates. There was a silver hammer buried 3 meters deep not far away. Roger took a few deep breaths, and then, I took out a samurai sword and started digging. I forgot that the shovel was given to an honest man that day. I must prepare a few more spares next time. Dig, dig, dig. Roger is full of energy. Not only does he want to dig out the hammer, but he also wants all the wreckage outside. They are all good things, spaceship wreckage, Gundam wreckage, tisk tisk. Even if he can't repair it, he can make a whole day by selling it back. The rich generation is just waiting to die. Finally, after digging with a ding sound, Roger knew that he had dug something. He hurriedly pushed away the soil, and a silver hammer filled with magical runes appeared in front of him. Roger licked his lower lip and picked up a meow hammer at the beginning. The world at the end of time is a treasure. It will drop everything except infinite gems. With great excitement, he covered the meow hammer with trembling hands and pulled it up. Wanama, is being too handsome a kind of original sin? Not recognized by Meowth hammer. Roger looked confused. He couldn't even lift the hammer. What the hell? In Marvel, there are only 2 types of people who can pick up the Meow hammer. One is the person who has its core authority. The first authority should be Odin and Hela, and the second is the person who is recognized by it. As an artifact, I don't know if it has a spirit, but Roger judged that it should have a rudimentary mind similar to Jarvis. Its preference is biased toward those with higher justice values. Therefore, if Captain America's buttocks are recognized by Meowth hammer, he can use it at will. What should we do now? Can't pick it up and watch the treasure go away empty-handed. Watch the beautiful woman take off her clothes but can't get on. Roger scratched his head so anxiously that several hairs were pulled out. At this moment, an extremely weak voice came into Roger's ears. I can help you. Who? Where are you? Roger looked up and couldn't find the person who made the sound. I'm at your feet, a foot away from the hammer. After digging again and pushing away the soil, a small glass jar appeared in front of Roger. There was a little man inside, who was constantly beating the glass jar. Well, why does this little guy look familiar? He also has a red cloak. This situation reminded Roger of a fairy tale about a devil in a bottle. So Roger decided, hey, you can't do this. You rescue me and I'll help you get Thor's hammer. You won't suffer from this deal. Roger put the bottle in place, covered it with a layer of soil, and stepped on it a few times. Please, let me out. The voice became smaller and smaller until it disappeared. Curiosity killed the cat, and Roger would never be that cat, so he had no choice but to let this old man continue to carry him in the bottle. After covering the soil with force, Roger thought about how to take the Meow hammer out. Is it enough not to let it sense that someone is touching it? Before time travel, I remembered that this hammer seemed like it could be placed on the deck of a space carrier in the sky, but a big green guy stretched his strength without even lifting it up. If this hammer didn't have a sensor similar to artificial intelligence, it would have crushed the space carrier and fallen to the ground. And so, don't let it feel that someone is touching it, that's right, it's a bug. Roger licked the corner of his mouth excitedly. He was good at playing games, but he was best at cheating or getting stuck. He was familiar with this aspect. Pick up the katana and insert it into the soil around the hammer to loosen the surrounding area so that the hammer is fixed on the soil in the middle to look like a small sunbathing platform. Finally, he stretched out his hand and moved it towards the middle, whoosh. Successfully, the Meowth hammer was taken into the space of the system. The hammer could not sense anyone, so it did not activate its own magic runes. It is also possible that because the storage space is not a human being and cannot feel the energy of living things, the hammer was put in by Roger due to a bug. Ha 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 ha, I'm really a genius. Roger happily jumped out of the pit. Although he didn't know how to use the Meow hammer for the time being, he had already mastered it, and there would be many opportunities in the future. When he came to the ground, Roger took out his old friend, the evil motorcycle, and he was going to be a scavenger. Unlike Loki and the others, they have storage space. It would be a pity not to dig up more treasures. As for the dark cloud in the sky, I'm so scared. I'm trying to get riches at a risk. If I don't take the treasure, it would be worse than taking Roger's life. After driving for a long time, Roger's eyes lit up. Although the mecha he passed by yesterday was a little broken. I have never crammed such a big thing into the game space in my life, I'm afraid it won't be enough. Sure enough, I tried and failed because there was not enough space. It is more than 80 meters high and weighs several thousand tons. It is the total weight of more than 10-ton cruise ships. The space will definitely not be able to accommodate it. After thinking about it, I invested my silver coins and the only remaining golden game coin in the game arcade, and exchanged them with the other party for a larger storage space. Then he took the wreckage of the Gundam in and happily ran to the next treasure hunt location. Although the wreckage of the Gundam was badly damaged, missing arms and legs, and even its power source, Roger still liked to keep it. We drove to the location of the battleship that fell yesterday. The soldiers on it were probably eaten by the crows, leaving only the steel wreckage of the battleship. Probably because the battleship was not tasty and chewy, all the bits and pieces were chewed up and not all disappeared. Roger shook his head. There were too many good things here, so he had to pick the most valuable ones. Of course, battleships would not be high on the list. We went up to the boat to get some food and wine, then came down and took it back to the base to have a drink with the locusts later. When they returned to the basement, several locusts were playing cards boredly, and even Crocodile Loki participated. Ahem, everyone, I looted some wine and meat from the fallen battleship. We can have some good food. Oh, beef, great, I can change the taste today. King Loki dropped the card first, ran over to take the beef, and ran to cook happily. On the way, I picked up a piece and threw it to the Crocodile Loki. Don't be surprised, this hellish place, after a long time, even the king will be bored to study other things. The old Loki also put down his cards and said helplessly, "Haha, have you got Mjolnir? I told you a long time ago that people who are not recognized by it cannot get it. If you want that hammer, you can find it if you go out and walk around a few times." Black Loki said cheerfully. "Oh, yes, there are too many good things," Roger sighed. It's like the wreckage of a spaceship, which is several times larger than an aircraft carrier. There is no way to collect it. The wreckage of the spaceship is several kilometers in diameter. It seems that it is not something difficult to see at the end of the world. However, the old Loki expressed disdain for this, saying that foreign objects were just things that delayed their mages. Roger wanted to express that, "Old man, you are so awesome that you haven't been caught yet." Roger said shamelessly, "Ahem, let me tell you, brother, can you teach me your projection spell that deceived Thanos? We can exchange." The old Loki chuckled, "You can't learn it even if I teach you. You know, you have to control the spell to the extreme to learn it. At least in this world at the end of time, I have seen so many locusts, but none of them can learn it." Quote, "Do you know what is the ultimate in fine control? Even the projected bones, blood, and hair are copied exactly the same using magic. The subtleties are indistinguishable even with a microscope. Can you achieve this kind of control? I can do part of it." Ha ha ha, I knew you, you could. Roger, who has been practicing and improving himself for many years, dare not brag about anything else, but he is still somewhat confident in his power control. Of course, compared to the old Loki, this 10,000-year-old ginger is definitely inferior. According to Thor's appearance, which is between 3,000 and 4,000 years old and only around 30, the appearance of this old man Loki is close to saying that he has lived for nearly 10,000 years. The 10,000 years mage is so terrifying. It's not impossible to teach you. We are all Loki. Loki in some time and space can do it, but Loki in other time and space may not be able to do it. The old Loki said with a smile, according to the rules of the mage, let's exchange of equal value. Let's agree first. I don't want those broken hammers and other weapons you picked up outside. I just want spells or knowledge. How about this? Roger took out the piece of tree heart charcoal from the dryad grandma that he had hit before. Seeing the other party staring at him with disdain like he was looking at trash, Roger had no choice but to take back the charcoal from the dryad grandma. After thinking about it, I took out the runes of Karmatage on the magic mirror that I had sorted out. Loki's eyes lit up when he saw this old man. This is okay. If I read it correctly, it's a bit like Kamatage's spell, right? Of course, this is my treasure. Roger felt heartbroken when he thought about paying someone to appraise it, but not being able to get it in time. It's a small amount of money. I don't know if I can go back in this life. Even if I keep my own small amount of money with me as a wipe, it's better than giving it to them for free. No, it's not just Karmatage's spell, but other things have been added to it. This should be on a magic circle, and it's also combined with the spells of many other things. This inventor is a genius. The inventor is a genius. How do you say this? Just ask if you don't understand. Roger has always been a good scholar who loves to learn. Kamatage, time and space magic. The runes on your photo are obviously time and space magic engraved on a magic prop. The old Loki pointed at one of them. The difference is that with time and space spells, you must spend a certain amount of mana to cast the spell. The farther the distance, the greater the cost and the greater the effort. And this energy is obviously extracted from other dimensions as the energy source for this magic prop. If my guess is correct, it should be a magic prop like a space-time gate. It's in your hand, right? No, absolutely not. This is just a photo I stole from Lao Wang's house next door. It has nothing to do with the space-time gate. Roger shook his head, unable to admit it even to death. He couldn't even take out the magic mirror, because he couldn't defeat the bad old man in front of him, the 10,000-year-old wizard Loki. Even if Thanos came, he might not be able to defeat him. All foreign objects are stumbling blocks that hinder the mage. Then old Loki waved his hand, and a blue space-time gate appeared in front of him. Roger, ahem, forgive me for my lack of knowledge. Brother Loki, you even know the magic of time and space. Why are you still trapped here by them? Can't you open a time and space door and run out on your own? No, old Loki said helplessly, this is the end of time, an end point. Time and space magic can only travel between different locations, but not different timelines, so it is difficult to get out. Furthermore, I suspect that even with the time stone, we may not be able to get out. The dark cloud outside may be the exit of this timeline, the only exit. Roger coughed and asked, brother, if all of you locusts gather together, can't you defeat that dark cloud? No one dares to try. You know, it swallows all matter and time, and spells are a form of energy conversion, so hitting it is almost like sending food. Roger couldn't help but have a headache. It was good to come to the treasure house, but if he couldn't get out, it would be like walking in brocade at night. Who would he show it to? Then if someone comes to rescue us with their kind of time control device, can we get out? Do not know. Roger looked at a few people and asked curiously, how many years have you been cut here? The young King Loki thought for a while, I don't know, I forgot, there is no concept of time here. Old Loki answered, it's been more than 100 years at least. As you know, old people are almost at the end of their lifespan and they always care about time. I'm more sensitive than them. More than 100 years. Come on, I don't even know if I can live for 100 years. Roger is not an immortal species like the Asgardians, who can live for thousands of years casually. Ghost Rider has no idea of making the host live forever. At most, the host can be healthy and free from diseases. Suddenly, I felt that the treasures outside were no longer fragrant. The meow hammer that I had worked so hard to pick up was no longer interested in studying how to decipher the magic runes on it. Later, the old Loki ended the exchange with satisfaction, and told Roger that the projection spell he traded was only the elementary version, and if he wanted to exchange it later for the advanced version. Advanced projection spells refer to the clone spells that can play tricks on Thanos, and there are even more advanced projection spells that directly copy a city. Even if you are in the city, you can't tell the real thing from the fake one. Babble, make a city, then he transforms into 100 or 200 beauties to serve him. This kind of magic is unbelievable. The good stuff on this old man smelled so good. If the other party hadn't refused to accept him as a disciple, Roger would have wanted to kneel down and hug his thigh. A few people finished their dinner and played cards every day. Roger felt bored and directly taught them how to play landlord. In the end, there were too many people, so we decided to play mahjong instead. Several people quickly asked what mahjong was. Roger explained it briefly and they understood. After all, they were all Loki. It was difficult to learn well. Learning to gamble was the talent of a bad guy. So, a few genuine Locus, plus Roger, a high imitation Loki, set up a table and played mahjong. Bump, bar, 2, 3 barrels. What a fool, haha. The young Loki excitedly grabbed the cards on the table and pushed them down. Give me money, give me money. Winning or losing is not important, what is important is the feeling of winning money. Did you cheat? Roger asked suspiciously. Nonsense, would I cheat? I am the king of Asgard. I own the entire treasure house of Asgard. I have never seen any treasures. Stop inking and give me the money quickly. The young Loki said angrily. Roger had no choice but to take out his own banknotes. They either used gold coins to replace their gambling funds or used wine instead, but he only used banknotes. In their words, paper money can be used to wipe your butt, better than gold coins. Gold coins are completely useless here, and wine can at least be used for drinking. Then, Roger once again lost almost all the banknotes that he had not covered up. He looked at the three of them suspiciously, wondering if they had colluded, otherwise he would lose the most, and no one else would. No more gambling. I have no money. You guys fight. I'll go out for a walk to see if a few boats have fallen off and I'll bring back some food and wine. Go ahead and remember to get some more spirits. The one called vodka is pretty good. No more red wine. It's boring, Black Loki said. After Roger left, Loki, the short-tailed crocodile, blinked and jumped directly to where he was sitting. Then he roared and waggled his tail. It said that if one of the three is missing, it will also play mahjong, the old Loki helped translate. Quote. As for Roger conjuring things, none of the Locus particularly cared, because each Loki knew some time and space spells and even had his own dimensional storage space. Loki, who dominates the sacred timeline, placed the cosmic cube in the dimensional storage space, and Thanos could only get it by threatening Thor's life. The old Loki's time and space spells were comparable to Kamataja's mage. With a wave of his hand, a time and space gate appeared. Roger even suspected that the reason why Loki gathered in this ghost place was because they all knew time and space magic. And Thor, who doesn't know the magic of time and space, will always see ghosts and be eaten by dark clouds over time, so he can dig up a meow hammer whenever he goes out. The evil spirit motorcycle needs oil as long as it doesn't transform. After all, it doesn't respect Newton's coffin board. It doesn't seem to make sense if it doesn't respect Einstein's law of conservation of energy. Roger parked his motorcycle next to a car in the ruins, opened the fuel tank and looked at it. There was oil in it. I looked up and looked around, but I couldn't find the tools or pipes, but that wasn't a problem. He took out his samurai sword, pried open the car, and took out a pipe inside, so that he could drain the oil. Looking at the dirty oil pipe, Roger had no choice but to take out the banknotes and wipe them clean with distress. He was reluctant to use the paper towels. He had to save this to wipe his butt because it was really uncomfortable to wipe with banknotes. Comfort yourself. Anyway, this thing has no use in this world except as a butt paper. It would be great to free up the storage space and dig out a few more Thor's hammers. After refueling, it was the daily scavenging life again. First, I walked around and entered the wreckage of a spaceship. It was a good thing. Unfortunately, I went in and looked at it for a long time. I really didn't know what was useful to me. The world of a scumbag is so helpless. The wreckage of this spaceship is bigger than the Gundam that Roger collected. It's several kilometers long. It's hard to go in and search for things that are useful to you. Just looking at it gives you a headache. After entering the cockpit, I only saw some wreckage and wires everywhere. I couldn't tell which ones were valuable and which ones were not. It is really fatal to let a scumbag dismantle a spaceship that is countless times more advanced than an aircraft carrier. I didn't find anything valuable, but I picked up a somewhat damaged laser gun in the passage. I tried it, but it turned out that it had no energy, so I simply threw it away. How to recharge a laser gun without energy? And how to make a charging head that converts energy? And if it's broken, how do you fix it? Alas, as expected, technology is still too difficult for scumbags, so you should develop your own black magic and Ghost Rider. He simply gave up searching for the spacecraft and moved to another place. Halfway through the walk, several buildings suddenly fell from the sky. They were probably cut by those guys again. We walked slowly past, and there were all office buildings. Fortunately, there was a small convenience store downstairs, so you could just go in and buy something for 0 yuan. Why didn't it go out of the bank? It would be great to let yourself get several tons of gold at a time. Could it be that the people from the mutated time administration kept them as currency? Kill. Roger looked around and saw the sound of fighting. After loading the gas, he drove up a hillside. I saw 2 gangs of people fighting with each other. Taking the lead, especially Loki, Roger couldn't help but cover his face. There is nothing else in this place, Loki is everywhere, and Thor is not as good as a dog. Sure enough, no one but Loki can survive in the world at the end of time. The leader, Loki, didn't know if being a king had become his obsession, so he started playing a kingdom in this world, but this kingdom was really a bit shabby. From time to time the king had to run away to avoid the dark clouds in the sky, and sometimes his people had to be lost. In the middle of the fight, one of Loki's big moves immediately blew up the opponent's camp and turned them upside down. Then a long piece of metal flew directly into the sky, and finally inserted it accurately into Roger's head. It hurts your lungs. The city gate is on fire and the fish pond is affected. Roger narrowly avoided something falling from the sky. Then there was a flash of silver light, and the metal penetrated deeply into the ground. Could it be a treasure? Roger quickly took a closer look. Only the hilt of the sword was left outside, and the sword body was deeply embedded in the soil. Hiss, it seems to be a real treasure. He pulled it out excitedly. Except for the dirty and tattered hilt, the silver sword body was spotless. Roger's eyes lit up. It was a good sword. After looking around, I found a big tree and waved it. Boom! The big tree fell to the ground with a crash, so sharp. Haha, it's really good stuff. You've earned it. Keep fighting, Loki. If there are any good stuff, remember to fly over more often. I happily packed up my things and returned to the gathering place. Why is my home gone? Roger arrived at the original underground base of the Locust, only to find it was in a mess. The scene seemed to have been fought by many people, and it was completely destroyed, with several big pits appearing. Come on, whoa, it couldn't have been done by those people just now, right? Then where have the crocodile locusts gone? Roger looked around. This place was too dangerous. It would be safest to follow the 10,000-year-old ginger Loki. Especially the opponent's spell, the advanced version of projection spell, which I haven't mastered yet. He was having a headache about what to exchange with the other party. There were too few things in his hand that the other party could appreciate. Loki, who was born in Asgard, had a library at home, but he didn't have any spells that he wanted. Roger estimated that his family's collection of books would only be million points less than Kamatage's, not much less. After all, a man who had ruled the 9 realms for so many thousands of years would have an astronomical number of books. As for a cheating time stone, just copy out whatever book you want to read and put it in the library. After changing the clone projection of old ginger Loki last time, I took out other things to exchange with him, but the result. The other party looked down upon the spells that summoned various demonic possessions, and the spells that summoned wandering souls and resentful spirits were even more despised by the other party. It gave me a terrible headache. Of course there were many valuable spells in old Yang's body. One of them was the projection spell that looked real. What about time and space spells, and teleportation? Teleportation is also an extremely powerful spell. Before time traveling, Roger's impression was that Loki seemed to like to use a projection spell to deceive people in front, and then silently teleport to the enemy's back to stab him in the waist. But finding people is Roger's specialty. Just follow the surrounding trails and find them slowly. Old Ginger Loki is good at teleportation and short distance time and space gates, but is not good at long distance time and space spells. At most, it was just around. Roger started to search for it while using his nose to smell the smell in the air while driving the motorcycle. This ability to use smell to find people comes from Ghost Rider. Through years of training, Roger developed Ghost Rider's ability as if he were a human being. From the 5 senses, smell, hearing, vision, taste, touch, etc. Vision is easy to develop. It is the eye of judgment, it comes with it, as long as you continue to strengthen your control, but taste and smell are. The skull doesn't even have a tongue, and its mouth is a ball of fire. How can you develop your sense of taste? The nose is just 2 holes, how can you smell it? But under Roger's crazy imagination, he still developed his sense of smell. The sense of smell directly smells not a person's scent like a dog, but a person's soul. As long as everyone and every creature has a soul, it can be sniffed out with the Ghost Rider's skeletal nose. The same goes for the sense of taste, which can test some residues containing magic power, but Roger rarely uses his mouth to play with Shenong and taste the herbs, for fear of being unhygienic. Hearing is also very easy to develop. After all, people without special physiques cannot hear the sounds of some wandering spirits. Even if he couldn't find a ghost girl, Roger would also like to try to develop a Ghost Rider. Ahem, the old man is here. He found such old ginger. No matter how you hide it, it can't cover up your spicy taste. Roger was overjoyed, turned the accelerator, and drove in the direction of old Loki. Although the old Loki's magic power was not leaked at all, making it impossible for anyone to judge his strength, his soul could not be concealed. In Roger's eyes, the other person's soul was as powerful as the sun. And in the sense of smell, the other party's soul is also extremely powerful, and the bad things he has done. No matter how much the sin is worth, harvesting such a high-quality soul will definitely be a great tonic, just like ginseng. Even overdoing it may kill oneself. Smelling the spicy smell of 10,000-year-old ginger in the air, Roger quickly located the position of old Loki. Like a star in the dark, no matter how much you hide, you can't cover up its light. The soul of old Loki is like the 10,000-year-old ginger in the vegetable market. The spicy smell of one person can cover up the smell of the entire market. Roger even suspected that Thanos might not be able to kill him without snapping his fingers with the Infinity Stones. As for the Time Variation Management Bureau, they were able to use some time devices to capture an Asgard mage prince who had lived for nearly 10,000 years. Roger even suspected that the immortal old Loki was deliberately captured by them because he had lived for too long. Boring. So when I met this group of organizations that could freely travel through the timeline, I was immediately intrigued and curious, so I pretended to be captured and came over to take a look. Then, I don't know whether the car overturned carelessly or deliberately, but it was cut to this world at the end of time. Roger remembers that there seems to be a version of the world where Thor was turned into an old man by the Time Stone. As a result, he was so strong that he beat Thanos directly. Although Loki is not Odin's biological child, the Asgardian spells he masters are real. After studying the 9 realms of spells for nearly 10,000 years, even a pig can become an immortal. This Time Variation Management Bureau, no matter how awesome it is, can it capture a person of Odin's level? Anyway, Roger didn't believe it, but he believed him a little more when he said that the 10,000-year-old ginger Loki was here for a trip. Soon, Roger followed the scent of old Loki's soul in the air and found his way directly in front of a dilapidated small house. When he arrived, he was stunned for a moment. Because there was a man and a woman sitting at the door, leaning on each other, their eyes facing each other lovingly. If Roger arrived a second later, maybe their lips would be *3e*. Ahem, sorry to bother you, I'm looking for the 10,000-year-old ginger. Oh, I'm looking for the old Loki, we're master and disciple. You go on, just pretend that I don't exist. Quote. Seeing the two people staring at him with unhappy expressions, Roger quickly explained. You're here. Come in when you're here. Don't disturb the two of them outside. An old voice came from the room, and it was none other than 10,000 years old Zhang. Roger quickly avoided the two men's dagger-like looks and got into the house. Seeing the situation in the room, Roger was stunned for a moment, because there were only 3 locusts, missing the big black Loki. Where is the big black Loki? HMPH, don't talk about him. He is a bad scoundrel who directly surrendered to President Loki. He also plans to rule us and overthrow me to become the king. Young Loki was indignant. That guy is a traitor, and there are no good people in Loki. Roger, fortunately, I'm not Loki. Ahem, let me tell you, what is there to rule in this barren mountainous place? From time to time, you have to avoid the dark clouds in the sky. Even walking on the ground makes you nervous. Alas, the old Loki said faintly, Loki's essence is like this, we are all bad and oily villains. Ahem, let's change the topic. Let's forget about the big black Loki. By the way, the man and woman outside are also new locusts. Roger asked curiously. It's understandable that the man has a face similar to Hiddleston's, and it's unclear which timeline he was cropped from Loki. The female one is strange, but considering that there is already a crocodile Loki, it seems that there is nothing strange about a female Loki with a different gender. The male is Loki just like us, and the female is also Loki, but her name is Sylvie. The young King Loki on the side explained. It turns out that on the day Roger went out to scavenge, the black Loki somehow attracted President Loki. Both of them were fools, bad to the core, and they still wanted to rule the world as kings. After a fight, the 10,000-year-old Zhang Loki easily transformed into a large number of physical projections of Loki, causing chaos in the scene. No one could tell who was who. Then he, the young king, and the crocodile took the opportunity to escape. Come out. Then I met the new Loki who had just fallen here, and soon after, I met the female Loki Sylvie and an old human man. Well, the small team lost 1 Loki and added 2 more locusts. By the way, let's play mahjong. 3 are missing and 1 is perfect. That old human man doesn't know how to play mahjong. I brought mahjong out before he left. King Loki said enthusiastically. He skillfully set up a table and put the mahjong away, looking like he was addicted to gambling. Quote. Quote. Do you think the king has been led astray by you? Like gambling, this isn't bad news. So, when Loki, the man and woman outside, returned to the house, he saw 3 people and 1 crocodile playing mahjong around the table. 3 barrels. Bump. 7,000. Hiss. This belongs to Crocodile Loki. Seeing that others could not understand what it meant, the old Loki translated. It's nonsense. Sigh. It asks for money, but if you don't have money to give it food and wine, it will get angry if you don't give it. Roger reluctantly took out a few bottles of vodka that he had just obtained, and Loki the crocodile happily drank 1 bottle in 1 gulp. Swish. After shuffling the cards, several people started playing mahjong again. Sylvie Loki, she said there is a way. She has an innate ability that can possess everything. She said that when she first came here, she briefly possessed the dark cloud. Shirt Loki said. That dark cloud may know everything about the time variation administration. When I was escaping, I briefly possessed it for a short time. As long as I can possess it again, we may be able to find the exit and the manager behind the scenes, and overthrow it. Those fools. It sounds like what this pair of fools, Loki, wants is for them to help fight the dark cloud that can swallow up time and matter. We can help you, but we won't leave. We stay here. This is our home. The 1,000-year-old ginger Loki was the first to answer. This is different from what Shirt Loki thought. He couldn't help but ask, are you sure? What about Helios? We've lived this long, we know what to do. Young Loki and Crocodile also sided with the 10,000-year-old ginger Loki. There was only one person left at the scene who had not expressed his position. Seeing everyone looking at Roger, Roger said seriously, yes, this is our home. You were right to follow old Zhang, who has lived for thousands of years. Who knows if the 2 in front of you are pig feet? Since I have never seen this movie before traveling through time, it is safest to follow old Zhang. After deciding that he was ready to go, the young King Loki gave Loki his magic sword. Roger looked at it, took out his Winchester Model 1887 shotgun, and gave the shirt to Rocky. What if the other party is really the protagonist? Isn't it possible to escape? Phew, a thief knows how to trick the protagonist into exploring the road and becoming cannon fodder. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.